Hello, friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I remember that night like it was the last time I ever felt safe behind the wheel of a patrol cruiser. The rain came down in sheets, hammering the roof of my office like a metronome gone mad. I sat in the dark, the only light a pale glow from the dashboard clock. 2:17 a.m., April 12th, 1997, and the soft amber of the street lamp beyond the Venetian blinds. I flipped on the recorder with a thumb that trembled just enough to make the tape hiss. There's a static in the air you can't photograph. Heavy, waiting. That's how I knew this confession would be different. No calls, no flashes of red and blue, just the rain and me, finally alone with the voices I've carried for 30 years. It began on U.S. Route 41, that long ribbon of asphalt carving through the Everglades like a scar on the earth. I was chasing the tail end of a 3-vehicle collision. Fender benders, really, nothing serious. A kid asleep behind the wheel, a couple of beers at the hotel bar, the usual drunk and disorderly complaints. But when I pulled up, there was no kid, no broken headlights or crumpled hood. Just 2 cars, idling nose to tail, engines warm, nobody inside. No flashing hazards, no bodies slumped over steering wheels. I circled the lot under my spotlight, saw boot prints in the mud by the swamp's edge, like someone had been trying to get away on foot. The chase ended in knee-deep water. I radioed it in, waiting for backup that never came. No signal, they told me. Just static on the frequency. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, soft splashes, too deliberate to be an animal. I walked along the side of the cruiser, my boots sinking into the dark muck. My flashlight beam hit a figure standing waist-deep in the water. At first, I thought it was one of those alligator skin bills from a tourist trap. Mannequin, maybe. But it stepped forward, silhouette outlined against the distant glow of Miami's Edgewater skyline. Slick hair plastered to its skull. No features, not at first, just a shape. My hand trembled on my .38. Radio crackled with dispatcher's voice. Static dancing over her words. "Unit 760, do you copy? We're losing you." I held the beam on the thing. It didn't move again, didn't speak. Just stood, shoulders squared. Then, as if tired of waiting, it ducked beneath the water. I heard a splash that felt too loud in the empty night. I didn't follow. I dropped back to the cruiser, fired off a radio call again, got nothing but hiss. My partner wasn't due in until dawn. I was alone. I called dispatch on my hand mic. Open channel, no code, just breath and rain. "Dispatch, this is 760. I've got a missing person at my last known," and the line went dead. When I clicked it off, I felt like my own voice had betrayed me. Back at the station, they logged it as no subject located. A tick mark on a report no one ever read. End of story, until I realized weeks later that CCTV at a gas station on Highway 27 showed the same 2 cars idling at exactly that time, but a third vehicle had parked behind them, unmarked, no plates. A black sedan. The driver never got out, just sat in the dark, engine off. No lights. And when the police cruiser arrived, it slipped away without a sound. That was the night I learned I wasn't looking for bodies. I was looking for questions. By morning, I was too tired to care about paperwork. I wiped down the cruiser, filed a generic NIL report, no incident. but I kept the mud-caked bootprint sample stashed in an evidence envelope in my desk. It was the only physical memory of that night, the only thing that refused to vanish into filing cabinets. I studied it under the microscope in forensics. Not alligator, not human, not any species they could identify. Just keratin and mud. Not a match in the database. When I first joined the Miami PD in '82, they taught you to solve puzzles, to put pieces together until you got a picture you could live with. But sometimes the puzzle is broken, the picture distorted, and the pieces don't fit. Years later, I'd find that out again. I'd learn that the Everglades teaches you nothing stays in place. Footprints wash away, bodies sink, radio waves die in the swamp. You learn that the world keeps secrets and sometimes your badge can't pry them loose. I recorded that evidence tag number on the tape, my voice catching just enough to betray my calm. I needed to get it down before I forgot, before the nightmares scrapped it away in the back of my mind. The second incident came on Highway A1A, near that abandoned beachfront motel everyone said was haunted. Tourists spoke of lights flickering through broken windows, whispers carried on the wind. You know the type of story. Kids daring each other to run across the veranda at midnight. But I got there to check an alleged trespass complaint. No one to be found, nothing to write home about. The place looked like any other gutted shell, rusted swing sets, peeling paint, hibiscus overgrowth. But when I stepped inside, the floorboards groaned under my weight. I radioed dispatch, asked for an ETA on units just to have someone else in my back seat. Silence. Again. I took the cruiser's spotlight and led it down the hallway. The beam caught a smear of red on the wall. No pattern, no handprint, just a streak, high enough that I had to tilt my head back to see it. It looked fresh. But when I reached out, the smear faded like water running down glass. I thought it was rain dripping through the broken roof. Then I heard the commotion on the radio, not mine, another channel bleeding through the static. Unit 2-1 to dispatch, we have shots fired, officer down. My pulse spiked. I called it in, terrified it was me they meant, but they said it was a Precinct 2 night shift up in the North End. Then the radio went silent again, swallowed by the rain. I left that motel and never came back. I filed another NIL, left the smear on the wall untested. No lab would prioritize blood that wasn't even confirmed. I never told my sergeant about the radio bleed-through, or how I swore I felt breath on the back of my neck as I blazed the hallway. I thought it was just nerves. I thought maybe the swamp had gotten in my head. But nights later, I woke to the smell of rain on asphalt, my boots crunching gravel in a motel parking lot, and saw that same smear in my dreams, a whisper begging me to come back. I'm not proud of the mistakes that followed. I chased clues nobody believed in. Old dispatch logs, trespass reports, maintenance checklists. I dredged up victims with no names, connected missing persons dots that never formed a picture. Each one became a riddle I carried home. My wife left in 2002, said I'd changed, that I talked to ghosts more than I talked to her. She was right. I'd convinced myself the swamp was talking, that the murmur of frogs and the hiss of static held meaning. I lost my edge, my confidence, but I never lost that itch to solve the unsolvable. So here I am, 48 years old, making sense of the senseless in a tape recorder hidden in my desk drawer. I stopped chasing every echo after a patrol cruiser rolled up on a woman standing in the rain at a deserted gas station near Homestead. She was soaked, hugging herself, eyes darting. I offered her a ride, but she shook her head, whispered, "You don't understand." She said her husband, Officer Reyes, was inside, bleeding out on the floor, But when I went in, there was no husband, no blood, just empty chairs and the hum of neon. I called for medics, called for backup, got static. And when I emerged, the woman was gone. No footprints in the puddles, no sign she ever existed. The station attendant had no record of her, no cameras, nothing but that echo in my memory, her voice cracking, begging me to leave it alone. I can't, won't leave it alone. Because each of these nights offers a fragment, a whisper of something darker, some force that doesn't care about our reports or our ordinances, something that thrives in the hush between calls, in the shallow breaths we take before we answer the radio, something that doesn't quite belong to this world. And now, as the rain hammers my window and the tape winds toward silence, I'm forced to ask myself, am I the one losing my mind? Or did I let something loose in those Everglades so long ago, something I've never stopped chasing, and that, in turn, has been chasing me? I still can't sleep without that tape running in my head. There are nights when I wake up drenched, the walls slick with sweat, convinced I hear the hiss of static even when the radio's off. I've trained myself to dismiss it, catalog it under fatigue or post-traumatic stress, file it away as something someone else would write up and lock in a case folder. But the truth is, I keep looking over my shoulder, certain that whatever I saw in that water, whatever left those boot prints, is out there somewhere, waiting for me to come back. I went back once, a few months later, to the edge of the Everglades. I told the sergeant it was for follow-up, standard protocol. He bought it. He'd heard my report and seen the boot print analysis. Unidentified non-human keratin. He said it was our best lead toward poaching violations or environmental infractions, something we could close as a wildlife crime case. I agreed. I loaded my shotgun shell evidence bag into the cruiser's back seat and drove until the streetlights gave way to open swamp, the radio crackling its half-silence. I parked at the same turnout, rain still falling in small rivers off the road. The underbrush was thicker, the path narrower. My flashlight shook as I pressed forward, tracing the edge of the water where the mud had hardened into the shape of a foot. I knelt, brushing rainwater off the envelope containing the original print. I pulled it open, laid the cast beside the fresh mud. The shapes matched almost perfectly. That cast was weeks old, the mud was new. I let that sit. We don't get footprints here, not this deep, not this clear, without a struggle or intention. I stood up, hornets rising around me like angry ghosts. I swept the beam across the water and saw, just beyond the light's edge, ripples. A steady pulse, then a pause, then the ripples again, like someone drumming their fingers on the surface. I called it in, voice steady. 760 to dispatch. I'm seeing movement. Possible subject in the bayou, requesting immediate air support. The only reply was static, an electronic sigh that sounded almost like laughter. The ripples stopped. The bayou went still, as if mocking me. Then there was a splash, soft, deliberate, the same sound I'd heard that first night. I trained my beam in the direction of the noise, heart thudding so loud I was sure I'd heard it on the tape. Nothing, no shape, no splash. But I felt something brush past my leg, slick and cold. I spun, shotgun raised, breath coming in ragged bursts. A figure rose from the water, closer than before, but just a blur. Gray outline and dripping hat brim, shoulders drooped like it was exhausted by distance. I squeezed the trigger, not at the figure, at my camera. I hurled the flashlight onto the ground, grabbed the evidence bag, and snapped photos of the prints carved into the mud. Then I ran. The swamp swallowed me up. Every tree a moving shadow, every rustle a warning. When I burst back onto the road, I slammed the cruiser door and floored the accelerator, tires spitting mud, the engine's roar fighting the rain's hammer. I didn't stop until the station's lights shone through the windshield like salvation. In the debrief, they called me hysterical. They asked if I'd been drinking, if I'd gone in alone, if I'd imagined the whole thing. They wrote up unauthorized solo recce, slapped me with an administrative write-up. I never got those photos on record. I keep the film in a shoebox at home, next to the bootprint cast. Sometimes I stare at them both and wonder if I'm chasing a ghost, or if it's been chasing me. That was 15 years ago. Since then, I've watched precinct captains retire, dispatchers transfer out. Even the Bayou patrol units get reassigned when budget cuts hit. The world moves on, but my memory doesn't. It loops that night over and over, hammering away at the walls I built around it. I can't explain why I stayed on the force so long, answering calls while collecting fragments of fear. Maybe I thought I could solve the puzzle. Maybe I just needed to prove it wasn't in my head. Tonight, I close the recorder on this confession with the same question I've never answered. When you hear footsteps in knee-deep water, and no one else is out there, who are you chasing? And who, or what, is waiting for you to catch up? Every now and then, when the wind shifts just right, I swear I can hear the swamp speaking in low voices. Old Everglades tongues mixed with static calling my name. I've felt the pull on nights like this when the rain feels too heavy to be natural. Last week, I drove down A1A again, past the crumbling motel, past the hotel bar where the kid fell asleep at the wheel. I parked under the neon glow of the closed sign at Salty's Marina, the same place where my partner and I used to grab coffee at dawn. I hadn't been there in 20 years, not since the dispatcher's voice crackled over the channel with news of my wife filing for divorce. The smell of fried fish and diesel fuel brought it all back, the day my life split in two. I stayed in the cruiser and watched the water, letting the engine idle so the dash lights cast long, green shadows across the cabin. My knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. I flicked on the radio, expecting nothing but hiss. Instead, a voice. Soft, female, like a half-heard whisper under a door. "Are you there?" it said, barely louder than the rain. I froze. The call sign wouldn't have been broadcast on my channel. No one but me knew I was out here. I keyed the mic. "Detective Hayes?" I said, and it sounded wrong, like I was calling out to someone long dead. "This is 760. Who's there?" Silence. Then the same whisper, drifting through the static. "I've been waiting." I slammed the radio off. My badge number flashed on the dash, red and accusing, like it was reminding me of every rule I'd broken. I should have left. I wanted to leave. But I felt compelled, drawn toward the water. I stepped out, ankle deep in puddles, rain blowing sideways. The wind carried that whisper again, so faint I thought I imagined it. "Detective." I aimed my flashlight at the boat ramp. The wood planks were slick, rotten at the edges. A single canoe bobbed at the end of the dock, tethered to nothing. No footprints in the mud near the ramp. No sign anyone had carried a boat here. Yet the canoe drifted, rocking as if guided by invisible hands. "I," called out, voice tightened with dread, "show yourself." The rain paused for a moment as if listening. Then the canoe surged forward, tipping the dock slats into splinters. I sprinted back, heart pounding like a call for backup I knew wouldn't answer. I tripped over the edge of the ramp, landed chest first in the water. Cold shot through me, burned my lungs. I scrambled upright, spitting out rainwater, and saw the canoe gliding away. No paddles, no operator, just the empty hull cutting through the black. I reached the water's edge, soaked to the bone, unarmed. Forgot my service revolver in the cruiser. The boat vanished around a bend in the mangroves. My feet sank into silt as I pushed deeper, trying to see through the rain. The swamp was alive with croaks and hisses, alligators sliding under the surface. Every instinct screamed for me to retreat, to let the mystery go unsolved. But I kept moving, knee-deep, trusting the swamp wouldn't swallow me whole. That's when I saw it. Footprints. Human-sized boot prints, trailing off the dock into the water. They were faint but distinct, heel, toe, edging into the bay like someone had walked right across the surface. My breath caught. I tracked them with my flashlight, each print leading further into the mangrove thicket where no terranean path existed. The air filled with the smell of brackish rot and something else. Iron, like fresh blood. My chest tightened, the tape rolling in my mind. Unanswered voicemails, knee-deep water, all circling back. I followed until the swamp closed in, roots like grasping fingers. My legs gave way in a hidden channel. I plunged, water up to my shoulders, and struggled to stay afloat. My flashlight died, battery gone from how long I'd been out here. I slapped the light free of silt and realized I'd lost the path back. The footprints ahead were now submerged. Panic set in as the water curled over my belt, chill creeping up my spine. I tried to retrace my steps, but the darkness swallowed me whole. Through the murk, I sensed movement. A shape drifting among the mangrove roots. It was broad-shouldered, the brim of a hat just visible above the water. I fumbled for my radio, clicked it on. Static poured through the speaker, then a clear voice. Mine from years ago, clipped and calm. "This is 760. Anyone copy?" My own voice answering me from the past through the storm. I keyed the mic. "Dispatch, send help," I rasped. Only silence and that same whisper, close as breath. I've been waiting. I never heard the chopper or the sirens. I blacked out, or maybe passed through some threshold where time folded. I woke in a hospital bed, IV in my arm, the steady beep of the monitor matching my pulse. They told me I'd been found by a marsh patrol unit at first light, face down in muck, evidence bag still clutched in a hand that wouldn't open. No canoe, no footprints, nothing but my broken flashlight and the weight of water in my lungs. My medical report said hypothermia, exhaustion, immersion. They classified it a training accident. I retired soon after. They say I was lucky, that most who sink in those waters never come back. But I remember the whisper, my voice answering me, and the way those prints hovered on the water's surface, like a trail I couldn't follow all the way home. Now, I live in a small apartment, far from the swamp. I sleep with the blinds closed and a floodlight shining on the garage, just in case. But every storm, when the wind rattles the window frames and the rain hammers at the panes, I hear that whisper again. Soft, insistent, promising. Detective. And I know that somewhere out there, beyond the reach of sirens and searchlights, something is still waiting for me to finish the chase. I've kept these tapes close, even after I walked away from the badge. Each reel labeled by date, location, oddity, like the one from May 3rd, 1999, where the victim's phone recorded 37 voicemails at 2-minute intervals, all silent except for ragged breathing. I played it once for a retired dispatcher over coffee. She leaned back, face pale, and said, "That's not breath. It's water." I never asked her to explain. Some things you don't want to know. My days now are quiet. I wake before dawn, pour black coffee into a chipped mug, then sit at my desk, not to answer calls but to listen. The hum of the refrigerator droning in the background, the soft thunk of my dog settling onto his bed at my feet. I load a tape, press play, and the hiss becomes company. Sometimes I'll transcribe lines. Each drop of rain on the recorder's case, every static pause. I've built a library of anomalies, calls that cut off at the same second every time, voices that echo with 100-yard delay, unexplained clicks that sound like footsteps 3 rooms over. Last month, I stumbled on something new. I was digitizing one of the tapes, January 14th, 2001, when the software froze on a single frame. I scrubbed backward, forward. The waveform spiked at that moment, a glitch in the matrix. I isolated the clip. It was me, talking into the hand mic at the gas station near Homestead. But my voice was pitched an octave lower, trembling in a way I never admitted. Behind me, there was a second voice, clear as the recorder's diaphragm. A child's voice, softly singing a lullaby in Spanish. I leaned in, heart hammering. Not one soul ever reported a child at that station. The attendant was 80 miles away, living in Ocala. There were no cameras, no witnesses. I played it for my sister, ex-Navy, smart as hell. She frowned at the speaker, said, "Static doesn't do that." She ran the clip through filters. No echo chamber, no background hum matching any known environment. She said it was impossible, or someone was good at faking it. I asked her who that someone would be, singing "Duermete, mi niño." She said, "I don't know, but I wouldn't ignore it." I didn't tell her about the dreams that night. That night, I woke to the lullaby again, drifting down the hallway. My bedroom is windowless. It should have been safe. I thought it was the neighbors until I remembered the walls are insulated. No sound carries. I traced it to the office door, where the tapes live in boxes. I flipped on the light, pressed record on my phone. The lullaby stopped. The silence was so loud I almost couldn't stand it. Then, across the floor, I heard that soft splash, like water being poured into a glass. I held my breath, stared at the row of cardboard boxes, and wondered which tape was missing. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I logged the incident under possible hallucination. I told my doctor I was under stress, gave me pills I refused to take, because I know what helpless feels like. Sitting in a hospital bed, lungs full of swamp water, waiting for someone to pull you out. I'd rather face whatever's out there than numb myself to it. It was on the 4th night that I got the call. My old dispatch number burned into memory. 305-871-XXXX. My phone rang at 2:17 a.m. My fingers hovered over decline before I recognized the caller ID. My thumb slid across the screen, then froze. The dial tone clicked. 4 rings. Click. No voice. But the line stayed open. I held the phone to my chest, waiting for the hush under the static, the breath that wasn't mine. Instead, I heard my own voice, whispering, "I've been waiting." The recording from the gas station and this call shared the same precision. Timing that couldn't be accidental. I dug through old logs, January 14th, 2001, April 12th, 1997, May 3rd, 2003, 1999. Each incident happened at exactly 2:17 a.m. Did I miss a pattern or a code? I charted the dates. They formed a sequence on the calendar. Uneven intervals, but consistent hours. I started to see a pattern. Every time there was a gap of 3 to 4 years, something escalated. A tape recording at a deserted site, a phantom partner over the radio, footprints in knee-deep water. But nothing prepared me for the next day. I awoke to a package on my doorstep, no return address. Inside was a single cassette tape, unlabeled. The plastic was yellowed, brittle. I brought it inside, popped it into my vintage recorder. The hiss was thicker than any tape I owned. Then, my wife's voice. I haven't heard her voice in years. She says my name, softly, like she used to when she thought I was closing my eyes to sleep. "Ethan, The tape clicks. The lullaby begins. Her voice, then static, then her voice again. I've been waiting. It was her last message, left on voicemail the night she walked out 30 years ago. But the number was disconnected, the voicemail deleted. My hands shook as I held the recorder. The dog whimpered at my feet. The first time I ever saw him afraid. I pressed stop, held the tape up to the light. Behind the magnetic strip, I saw a faint imprint, the waveforms of a second recording, recorded directly over my wife's message. Something had used the tape to speak to me, to pull me back, to remind me I never left the swamp. I've read police procedures on evidence handling. They say you seal the original, make copies, store the chain of custody. But this tape isn't evidence, it's personal. It's a confession written for me by something that knows my history, my mistakes, my broken heart. I can't trust my own archives anymore. So tonight, I'm sending this final tape into the digital abyss. I'll upload it to a private server, triple encrypted. Maybe someone at the FBI will notice the timestamp, 2:17 a.m., and trace the origin. Maybe they'll think it's a prank, an elaborate hoax. Maybe it is, or maybe I'm finally losing my grip. Either way, when you hear the hiss and her voice calling out across decades, you'll have to decide. Do you believe a noise in the dark can carry a soul? Or is the swamp just echoing back everything we whisper into it? I'm done chasing patterns for now. But as I seal the envelope and mail it off, I feel the weight of those footprints pressing into my memory. The path I left unfinished, the question I never answered. And I realize that even here, far from water and radio crackle, I can't silence the swamp's call. Because tonight, while I was packing that tape, the rain returned. And in the thrum against the window, I heard it clear as day. A single voice, half static, half memory, whispering my name. What did you leave unfinished? I wake most mornings to the same emptiness. The tape recorder's red light blinking at me like an unanswered question. I've tried to replace it, digital recorders, voice memo apps, but none capture the nuances the old reel-to-reel does. The tiny warble when the motor spins, the soft hiss before a voice cuts through, the way the magnetic tape seems alive under my fingertips. Tonight, I found myself in the basement, surrounded by boxes of tapes I've never re-listened to. I pulled one at random. October 9th, 2005. Miami Beach Precinct, midnight shift. I pressed play. My own voice filled the room, calm and measured. Unit 82 to dispatch. Possible code 2 on Collins Avenue, pedestrian struck. Then, nothing but rain on pavement and the low rumble of a distant engine. I paused it, fast-forwarded. Static. Then footsteps, soft, deliberate, crossing from left to right behind me. I spun in my chair. The basement was empty except for old filing cabinets. I hit stop and ejected the tape. Heart banging so hard I thought it might rip itself free from my chest. I stored that tape in a separate box. Do not play. But even as I labeled it, I wondered if the basement walls themselves were going to bend around me, press in until I confessed to whatever was watching, listening. My dog, an old shepherd mix I rescued from a shelter, growled at the door. He's never been that protective before. I flipped on the lights, saw his hackles raised, ears flat. I knelt and ran a hand down his back. He shivered. I carried him upstairs and locked the basement door. I promised myself I wouldn't go down again. But midnight found me at my desk, the hush of the apartment broken only by the refrigerator's hum. I powered up the recorder and thread the ribbon through the heads. I set the unlabeled tape from last week next to the player. My thumb hovered over the play button. I thought of my wife's voice, the lullaby, the way her words cut through decades of silence. I thought of the footprints in shallow water, the phantom canoe, the whisper on the wind. I pressed play. The first 30 seconds were empty, the tape trimmed too close at the start. Then it clicked, and I heard it. A child's voice humming a nursery rhyme in English this time, slow and deliberate. Bah, bah, black sheep. My breath caught. That rhyme had no place in Spanish lullabies, no connection to the voices I knew. The voice was soft, almost sleepy, as if the singer were perched on my shoulder, inches from my ear. The tape shifted, and beneath the hum I heard something else, the faint drip of water echoing as though in a cavern. Then my own voice, softer than I remembered, whispering, "Is someone there?" I hit pause. The dog whimpered beside me. My mind raced. Internal playback glitch, stray recording? I grabbed the light recorder microphone and stood in an empty hallway, clicking the button. "Hello?" My voice sounded brittle. Silence answered. Then, through the static of my mic, the nursery rhyme resumed, lower, as if coming through the drywall. "Have you any wool?" I clicked off the mic. My basement door rattled. The hallway light flickered. I swallowed hard, hands slick with sweat. I caught a glimpse of movement at the far end of the corridor, tiny feet at the threshold. I called out, voice trembling, "Who's there?" No answer, just the hiss of the tape recorder in my pocket. I flicked on every light on the floor and crept forward, my dog at my heel. The living room, kitchen, even the bathroom. No child, no figure. Only my breath in the cold, fluorescent glow. I returned to the recorder on my desk. The tape kept running, even though I'd pressed stop. I pulled it free and held it to my ear. The rhyme had stopped, replaced by a low, rhythmic thud, footsteps ascending stairs. The horror of that sound pinned me in place. The steps paused at the top of the basement door in my mind, though I knew I was alone upstairs. Then they walked across the hallway, receded, and the tape went silent again. I'm done pretending this is some trick of acoustics or memory. Something is using these recordings, these scraps of my life, to communicate, or to mock me. I can't tell which. All I know is I no longer trust silence. Every time I think I've mapped the pattern, the swamp reveals a new corridor, a deeper cavern where echoes are born and never die. I realized I haven't heard my own name in hours. So I say it now into the recorder, knowing someone or something is listening. Detective Hayes, I'm here. I'm still listening. What do you need from me next? I haven't left the apartment in days. The windows are shuttered, the air stale with coffee and old tape hiss. My dog sleeps by the door, ears flicking at every whisper. I keep the recorder running on low volume, like a nightlight for my nerves. I tell myself it's to catch anomalies, but really I can't bear the silence. It reminds me of that first night on Route 41, when the world went mute except for the rain and the footsteps. Last night's tape was worse than anything before. I loaded the reel marked October 2005, Do Not Play, into the machine. The room filled with that familiar whine, then a rush of static so dense it drowned out the hiss. When voices emerged, they weren't mine. They were layered, male and female, whispering in overlapping loops. One voice spoke my name. Detective Hayes. Another laughed. A soft, childlike giggle echoing from the speakers like a ghost trapped in the coil. Then a third, deeper voice, solemn. We're still here. I hit stop and pounded my fist on the desk until the machine clicked. The recorder ejected the tape as if rejecting it, flinging the reel across the floor. I watched the spool spin to a halt on the carpet, unmoving as if drained of energy. My chest heaved. The apartment was so quiet I could hear my pulse thumping in my ears. The dog whimpered and nosed at the reel. I told him, "Stay away," but he didn't move. He stared at that tape like it was alive. I know there's no rational explanation. No human voice can record itself after death. No machine can splice decades into a single coil. Yet, here I am, clutching my service revolver, pacing the living room at 3:47 a.m., loaded magazine empty of bullets I refuse to fire. I imagine prying open the basement door, descending into that dank space to retrieve the original tapes, to destroy them all in a bonfire of information. But I'm too afraid. I need proof, even if it drives me mad. Instead, I dialed my old captain's unlisted number, someone I trusted once. It rang twice, then clicked. I left a message. If you get this, listen to tapes dated April 12, 1997, January 14, 2001, October 9, 2001-2005. Look for echoes, call me back. I hung up before the beep. No idea if he'll call. I barely expect any signal in this neighborhood. I scrawled a list on notebook paper. Pattern markers, timestamps, spectral voices. I underlined 2:17 a.m. in red ink. Under it, I wrote, "It always starts at 2:17. If someone ever finds these notes, they'll think I was insane. Maybe I am. But there's one more thing I have to do before I stop, or before it stops me. I'm going back to Homestead, to that deserted gas station where the woman appeared, if she ever did. I'll take the road at exactly 2 a.m., time the drive to hit the pumps at 2:17. I'll film everything with a handheld camcorder, any evidence I can collect. I'll lean against the pumps, waiting for static, for whispers, for that child's lullaby or the nursery rhyme. I'll stand in the rain until it drives me back or until I find the answer. Because I owe this world the truth. We're not as alone as we think. There are patterns beneath the noise, questions echoing across decades. I've chased them through swamps and motels, across neon-lit streets and ghost towns of memory. I've cataloged footprints that vanish, voices that respond to my name, and tapes that record what's no longer there. Tonight, I close the notebook and load fresh batteries into the camcorder. I pack the tape marked January 2001 and the cast of the bootprint. I'll leave the rest behind. I lock the apartment door, drive through soaked streets toward the Everglades edge and the gas station that never sleeps. When I arrive, I'll switch off the engine at 2:17. I'll leave the car running for light. I'll stand in the rain, raise the camcorder, and ask aloud what I've never voiced. Who are you? What do you want? Then I'll wait, as I always have, for the answer drifting through the static, and I'll record it. The drive out of town was quiet, save for the rumble of tires on wet asphalt and the soft whistle of wind through the cracked window. I watched the digital clock blink 2:09 a.m. as I turned off Route 27 onto the back roads leading to the Homestead station. Every mile marker that passed felt like a countdown, each second drawing me closer to whatever waited in the rain-soaked darkness. I thumbed the camcorder's record button half on, lens cap off, ready to capture the first flicker of static or ghostly echo. My knuckles whitened on the wheel. The road narrowed beneath the oaks draped in Spanish moss, which glistened like spectral curtains in my headlights. At 2:14, the neon glow of the station sign came into view through a curtain of rain. The pumps stood empty, their hoses coiled like sleeping serpents. I parked dead center between pump 4 and 5, my chosen vantage point to record both the canopy above and the ground below. I shut off the engine. The dashboard lights went dark, leaving only the stations flickering red and white overhead. A thin column of steam rose from the cooling exhaust, mingling with the mist. I grabbed the tape canister marked January 14, 2001, clipped it into my belt holster next to the bootprint cast, and stepped into the rain. The camcorder's display lit up as I pressed record. The lens fogged for a moment until I keyed the lens hood closed. Rain pelted the mic's windscreen, but the machine handled it. Just enough hiss to set the mood. I panned slowly from the cracked concrete out to the road. A mile down, the stand of cypress trees loomed, their trunks anchored in saturated earth. There was no wind. The rain fell straight down, hammering the awning overhead. My breath trailed in white puffs, even though the air was humid and warm, a trick of nerves. I stood motionless, waiting for something to happen. At 2:17, to my right, the radio I'd mounted on the dash crackled to life inside my coat pocket. An open mic I forgot to power down. It emitted a droning static that crescendoed until it threatened to drown out everything else. I hit the side switch to kill it. Silence returned. But beneath that silence, I thought I heard a footstep. A soft thud on the canopy's metal roof. Just one, as deliberate as a heartbeat. My heart answered back, thudding in my ears. I trained the camera upward and caught the movement. A shadow darting behind the support beam. I zoomed in, but the rain looked like white streaks across the frame. I lowered the camcorder and took a step forward. The distinct click of wet concrete under my boot. I heard another footstep, this one behind me on Pump 4's platform. I swung the camera around. The scene was empty. No person, no animal, nothing but a puddle that rippled outward in concentric circles. The ripples spread until it reached the edge of the pad. I leaned closer, tracking the rings. Then, from the far side of the station, came the faintest wisp of a baby's cry, like an infant stranded in the open. My breath caught on a silent gasp. I clicked my tongue, listened again. The cry stopped, replaced by an echoing laugh, soft and melodic, hovering just beyond the awning's wet edge. I stumbled backward, heart hammering as if trying to break free of my rib cage. I keyed the camcorder's mic, whispered, "Show yourself." The machine's red tally light blinked on. For a moment, the only sound was rain. Then, abruptly, the neon sign sputtered, its glow pulsing twice and dying, leaving the station shrouded in near total darkness. My camera's infrared mode kicked on automatically. The scene turned emerald green. I swung the viewfinder to the pump area. In the grainy shimmer, I saw her, the woman from years ago, drenched, hugging her arms, hair plastered to her shoulders. She stood stock still, staring directly at me. I froze, unable to speak. Her lips parted, and a crackle like radio static spilled from the speakers. I heard my own voice bleeding through. "Dispatch, no. Dispatch, respond." It repeated on a loop, slowing and warping. Each playback stretched the words until they were unrecognizable syllables. Then, over top, a third voice. A child's whisper in Spanish, softly intoning the lullaby. "Duérmete, negrito." My fingers shook around the camcorder. I wanted to turn and run, but I tore my gaze back to the screen. She raised a hand, pointing directly at the camera. The infrared revealed her eyes as two dark pits, reflecting no light. Her mouth opened, and the lullaby veered into English. "Ba, ba, black sheep." She mouthed the words in perfect sync, voice blending both tongues. A seamless, impossible translation. Then she tilted her head, as if puzzled, and the camera shifted. In the background, walking across Route 27, came a lone figure in uniform, me, but younger, carrying the evidence bag and brandishing the boot print cast under the street lamp. I blinked. The station was deserted again. On my screen, the wrinkled palm of her outstretched hand pressed against invisible glass. Then her features blurred, as if I'd defocused. The infrared glitched, the green hue flickering. The machine cut out, sensors overheated by moisture. The recording stopped. The frame froze on her silhouette, and the last thing I saw was the bootprint cast that I kept strapped to my leg, reflected in her dark eyes. I stood there for a long, shaking minute, until the neon sputtered back on in a buzzing hum. The woman was gone. The pumps lay empty and inert. No footprints, no traces. Just a pool of water reflecting the station's harsh light. I pressed stop on the camcorder and shoved it into my coat. My hands trembled as I fumbled the bootprint cast back into its holster. I didn't look for the black sedan. I didn't search for the canoe. I didn't call dispatch. I just climbed into the cruiser, started it, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw her silhouette in the awning's frame for a heartbeat, a dark shape that vanished when I blinked. I punched the wipers on high, but the rain cleared only my windshield. The memory of her eyes, the lullabies and the footprints in knee-deep water stayed with me as I sped down the road, racing the clock until I reached home, where silence awaited. If silence can ever truly be silent. When I got back to the apartment, I uploaded the camcorder's file to my private server. The timestamp read 2:17:03 a.m., exactly as the pattern dictated. I watched the playback once, far too disturbed to see more. The woman, the whispering voices, the echoes of my younger self, each frame seared into the digital file. Then I deleted the local copy. I left only one version, buried behind layers of encryption, in case anyone ever needed proof. Now I sit here, the rain still tapping against the window, and I wonder, have I finally captured the answer I sought? Or did I only record another fragment of the swamp's endless question? Because when you stand in the rain at exactly 2:17 a.m., there's no telling who or what is watching you, waiting for you to look back. And that's the truth I can't shake. Some hunts never end, and some echoes never fade. I pressed record tonight not to stop the voice, but to hear it one last time. So here it is, the faint shimmer of static, the lullaby in 2 languages, my own voice begging for response, and a single final whisper, half human, half machine, carried on the wind. We've been waiting. I barely slept last night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her silhouette at the pumps, hat brim dripping rain, eyes hollow as 2 cypress knees jutting from the water. By dawn, I was back at my desk, the camcorder file encrypted on the server, my boots still resting on the seat where I'd left them. I must have replayed that final scene a dozen times, the lullaby shifting between languages, the younger me in uniform stepping across Route 27, and her pointing, as if to say, "You know me. Remember me." But who was she, and why did she return each time? I spent the morning combing through dispatch logs from January 2001, April 1997, October 2005. Every night at exactly 2:17 something inexplicable happened. Footsteps in mud, voices on silent channels, phantom calls, unseen figures. Then a pattern emerged beyond the dates. The victims or witnesses were all people I'd tried to help. Officer Reyes's wife at Salty's Marina, the kid who fell asleep at the wheel, Michael Carilli before he was exonerated, they'd all looked to me for rescue. And each time I'd failed. So now she came back, night after night, to remind me, you are not beyond failure. That afternoon, I dug out the cast of the unidentified footprint, the one whose ridges matched the prints in the mud at the Everglades turnout. I examined it under a lamp, running my finger along the edges. The keratin sample was brittle, like a bone left too long in the sun. I still hadn't sent it to any lab, partly out of stubbornness, partly out of fear of formalizing what I already knew. There was no catalogued creature that bore those tread patterns. They felt human, but no human could stand knee-deep on water without sinking. That impossibility kept me tethered to the mystery. By evening, the sky was bruised purple and slate. I drove back out toward the swamp, not to Homestead Station this time, but to the turnoff on Route 41 where it all began. The old pullout was choked with weeds now, the asphalt cracking under new growth. My headlights picked out the pair of cars still parked nose to tail, engines long cold. I stepped out, the odor of wet concrete and moss curling around me. I carried the boot print cast in a plastic box and the camcorder in a padded bag. The recorder from the night before sat on the passenger seat, humming softly as it charged. I pressed record on the handheld mic and radio dispatch on an encrypted frequency. "This is Hayes. I'm at the old accident site. No subject located." Then I waited. The swamp was alive, cicadas stuttering like broken metronomes, frogs punctuating the darkness, water dripping from leaf to leaf. My boots crunched over broken asphalt. I laid the cast on a ledge of crumbling pavement and set the camcorder on a tripod, aimed at the tree line half hidden in gloom. At 2:17, the camcorder sprang to life, not because I pressed record, but because something else triggered it, an infrasound pulse that activated its motion sensor. The display showed the thermal overlay shimmering like heat haze. Through the lens, I saw movement. A figure stepping out of the bayou, shoulders hunched, hat brim pulled low. The figure was too tall, too broad across the back. Not me, not anyone I'd known. It walked slowly toward the cast, boot first, until the imprint matched its step. The machine registered a perfect calibration, stride, pressure, ratio. Then it paused, leaned in, and lifted a hand to touch the cast. I walked forward, fingers curled around the .38 in my coat pocket, heart hammering. The creature turned. In the infrared view, it was featureless, a gray void, mouthless, eyeless, yet I felt its gaze drilling into me. The swamp fell silent. No birds, no insects, the night held its breath. I whispered into the mic, "Who are you?" The only answer was the static from the recorder on the passenger seat, growing louder until it drowned out the cicadas and frogs. I spun around toward the cruiser, for a moment thinking I heard my wife's voice carried on the whine. "Ethan." But when I reached the door, the recorder sat on the seat, blinking sleep mode. No static, no lullaby. I wheeled back to the figure, and it was gone. In the camcorder's viewfinder, the screen went black except for a single frame, frozen by the motion sensor. The outline of the boot print cast on the pavement, clear as daylight, and above it the reflection of my own face, peering down. I retrieved the files later and watched frame by frame. The reflection lingered for a full half-second after the creature had vanished. It looked like me, eyes wide, mouth parted, but warped, as though the image had been pulled through water. Then the screen flickered and returned to thermal mode. Only the swamp's heat signature remained. I stayed until first light, gathering samples of mud, broken bits of asphalt, any physical trace I could find. By sunrise, the swamp reclaimed the site. No footprints in the fresh mud, no lingering heat signature on the cold pavement. A trumpet vine had sprouted through a crack at the edge of the turnout, blooming impossibly overnight. It smelled faintly sweet, heady against the dank air. Now I'm back in the apartment, and the tapes are playing themselves on the old reel-to-reel, the one machine I cannot silence. They loop night after restless night, the woman at Salty's downpour, the whisper on the radio, the child's lullaby in two tongues, the nursery rhyme in a child's voice that never belonged. Tonight, the loop ended on a new glitch. My own voice, distorted, saying a line I've never spoken out loud. "You can't bury me in silence." The scratchy voice followed with a cackle, half familiar, half otherworldly. Then nothing but the hiss. That's the question I wake with each morning. What have I unearthed? And what has unearthed me? The swamp's secrets have slipped inside me, forged into muscle memory by the sound of my own name echoing in knee-deep water. I thought I was chasing unanswered calls. Instead, I've become the answer someone, or something, has been waiting for. I woke this morning to a sunrise so pale it looked stolen, washed out pink bleeding through my blinds, like the swamp surrendering its nightmarish hold for a moment. I sat on the edge of the bed, deafened by the absence of tape hiss, staring at the recorder on the nightstand. Its red light was finally off. My dog slept curled at my feet, his side rising and falling in exaggerated breaths. I wondered whether I'd dreamed any of it. Every creak in the floorboards, every echo in the hall, I'd learned to catalog as data, evidence, or hallucination. But this morning, the recorder's silence felt like one more piece of the puzzle slipping away. I made coffee, bitter as regret, and poured it into a chipped mug I've had since academy days, before the Everglades, before the late calls, before I traded patrol duty for obsessive investigation. I carried the mug to my desk where the final tape from last night lay unspooled in its canister. The reel stamped Route 41 Turnout, 2:17 a.m. I thumbed the edge, half expecting it to bite. My hands trembled. At this point, I doubt they'll ever steady again. I slid the tape into the reel-to-reel and pressed play, watching the counter click past 0. Static, long and pregnant, filled the room. Then the child's voice, slow, deliberate, reciting lines I'd never heard before. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye. It wasn't the familiar nursery rhyme, words twisted into dark poetry. A pocket full of dirt, gleaners by the mire. My pulse pounded in time with the revised cadence. Beneath that voice, a second track emerged. Footsteps, soft and measured, matching the boot print cast I'd laid out as a prop on the pavement. Then a third layer, my own breath, ragged, recorded from the night I first found the cast in the water. It panned from left to right across the speakers, coming closer until it seemed to echo inside my skull. I hit stop and leaned back, head spinning. The tape did more than recount events. It rewrote them in real time, merging voices from different nights, different sights, different memories, until they overlapped in impossible ways. The reel clicked in my hand, heavy with implication. This wasn't just a ghost calling me back. It was a chorus of every unanswered call I'd ever made, repackaged into a song designed to entrap me. I thought of the woman in the hat, the homestead ghost, and how her silent plea had warped into lullabies and nursery rhymes. I thought of the stranger at the swamp, touching the cast, reflecting my younger self with hollow eyes. I thought of every victim I'd failed. The woman bleeding in an empty station. The kid slumped in a car no one found. Michael Carrill at the wrong place, wrong time. They'd all been waiting for me to listen. But what if I'd stopped too soon? What if by recording and replaying, I'd handed over the one thing that could free me? Silence. I pulled the tape from the recorder and held it close to my ear. The reel spun inert, but I could still hear the echo of that nursery rhyme, as though the magnetic strip had pulled memories into the grooves of my brain. I set the tape on the desk and reached for my phone. I texted one line to my sister, the ex-Navy codebreaker. Bring a fresh pair of batteries and a digital spectrometer. Now. I didn't wait for her reply. I knew she'd come. I laid out the artifacts, the boot print cast in plastic, the January 2001 tape, the October 2005 reel, the camcorder files flagged at 217, and the battered reel-to-reel that refused to stay silent. My desk was a junk heap of obsession. I plugged my laptop into the recorder's line-out jack, opened an audio analysis program, and imported the routes of the old tapes. Every timestamp from 1997 to last night's expedition. The spectrogram bloomed on screen in violet and gold, a chaotic landscape of peaks and valleys. Yet within that chaos, I saw shapes, patterns like tree branches, veins leading to a central nexus at 217. And those veins pulsed in time with something my gut recognized as the same code I'd cassette recorded into evidence logs back at the station decades ago. It was impossible. I'd never even heard those beats until the recorder played them back. I scrubbed through the data, isolating frequencies at which the voices overlapped. 314 hertz, 527 hertz, 1.1 kilohertz. A chord that, when played in sequence, matched the dial tone of an old rotary phone. My heart lurched. That tone would call anything with a microphone to attention. Dispatch centers, cop cars, my recorder, it was a summons. Something had used my own recordings, combined them with every bit of evidence I'd ever collected, and composed a signal meant exclusively for me. I realized with a sinking certainty that I was part of the composition. My memories, my guilt, my failures, they were the instruments in a relentless symphony. And every time I pressed play, I tuned the orchestra. The swamp, the bayou, the pump station, they weren't locations. They were movements, sections in a dark concerto arranged by a conductor I couldn't see. My sister arrived as the sun dipped below the horizon, lugging a backpack of gear. She gave me one look at the lab setup and whispered, "Holy hell." I nodded, handed her the bootprint cast. "Tell me what that frequency cord does," I said. She connected her spectrometer to the laptop and ran a sweep. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. The spectrogram shifted, revealing hidden subharmonics, ultrasonic pulses at 20 kilohertz, inaudible to human ears but picked up by microphone diaphragms and security sensors. Those pulses were like moth wings, invisible tremors that triggered recording devices wherever they were active. I felt goosebumps. We'd unwittingly created a network of listening posts across Florida. Gas station booms, cop car radios, office recorders, each one tuned to that hidden chord. Something had latched onto my evidence, broadcast a composite frequency, and hijacked every microphone in its path. And I'd been feeding it new material every time I went out into the rain, every time I hit record. The swamp had become a trap, audible only through electrical signals, a predator hunting through data streams. My sister's face was pale. She said, "We have to cut the signal at its source." She pointed at the reel-to-reel. Destroy that machine. I thought of my battered recorder, my only companion for 30 years. But if she was right, then every device hooked into that cord would keep replaying my memories, broadcasting my failures until it consumed me entirely. I hesitated. The recorder was more than hardware. It was the repository of every confession I'd ever dared to make. Destroying it meant erasing the record of my own soul, but keeping it meant I'd never escape the call. I looked around at the tapes lining the walls, felt the hum of electricity in the room, the low vibration of city life beyond the window. Somewhere out there, hidden microphones were piped into that same network, feeding my cord back into the world. I lifted a hammer from the toolbox beside the desk. My dog whimpered. My sister put a hand on my shoulder. "Ethan," she said softly, "let it go." I raised the hammer. In that moment, I understood. To end the symphony, I had to silence every instrument, including my own voice. I brought the hammer down. Glass shattered, metal bent, magnetic tape snapped inside the reels. The recorder's motor died with a final whir. The room plunged into dead silence, the first true silence I'd known in decades. My ears rang. I felt both lighter and more hollow than at any point in my life. We didn't speak as we packed up. My sister took the shattered components and the remaining tapes. I watched her go, the weight of unresolved questions settling in my chest. I sat in the dark apartment, the only sound my own ragged breathing. For the first time, I couldn't tell if I was friend or foe, hunter or hunted. And then, softly, impossibly, I heard it. A single note, low and distant, coming through the open window, carried on the city hum. Not static, music. A lone, whispering chord at 2:17 p.m., the same frequency we'd isolated on the spectrogram. It quivered in the air, a half-remembered lullaby, a nursery rhyme turned dirge. I strained to listen, chest tight, as the note faded into nothing. And in that silence I realized the final truth of this confession. Even if you break the instrument, the song remains etched in your bones. Some hunts never end, and some echoes are carried not by machines, but by memory itself. I didn't know how long I sat there in the dark, the hammer heavy in my trembling hand, the broken reels strewn like wreckage at my feet. The silence wasn't peace. It was the vacuum left behind by the recorder's death, a nothingness so vast it swallowed every other sound. My dog nudged my leg, low whine in his throat, and I realized I still wore my coat. Rainwater dripped off my sleeves onto the carpet. And somewhere outside, a siren wailed its own requiem. I must have dozed, because when I opened my eyes, dawn was seeping through a single unshuttered window. Pale light, indifferent. The apartment felt different. Smaller somehow, as if the walls had drawn closer now that my companion, the tape recorder, was no more. I half expected to see its red light blinking at me from the coffee table, beckoning me back into the wet nights, the static rituals. But it was gone, reduced to twisted metal and shattered glass in a trash bag by the door. I stared at the empty space, as guilty as if I had buried a friend alive. For days, I wandered through routines, buying groceries, walking the dog, glancing at my phone for missed calls that never came. The world outside carried on. People arguing over morning traffic, children laughing on sidewalks, the undercurrent of voices on passing radios. Nothing in that noise resembled the hush of the swamp or the lullabies recast into nightmares. And yet, something had followed me home. I could feel it in every cavity of my skull, a low hum that I craved like oxygen, like a drug my body refused to let go of. On the fifth night, at 2:17 a.m. sharp, it started again. I sat bolt upright in bed, sweat dampening my pajamas, convinced I'd slipped accidentally into dream. It began as a whisper, the faintest stir of static beneath my pillow. I froze, heart slamming against ribs. The whisper grew into a voice, distant but familiar, soft and half-remembered. Detective Hayes. My own name, drawn out in a tone I hadn't used in years. My mouth went dry. I pressed my ear to the mattress. The voice came again, closer now, as though crawling through the bed frames. I bolted upright, yanked the covers away, and my bare feet hit the cold hardwood. The apartment was pitch black. I fumbled for my phone, slapped the flashlight app on. The beam swept across the ceiling. Nothing. The hallway, empty. I crept toward the living room, dog at my heels, ears pricked. I half expected the shattered recorder to reassemble itself on the floor. Instead, I found a small, square package resting on the threshold of the kitchen. No return address, no stamp, just my name scrawled in a shaky, looping hand. I carried the package to the coffee table, light shaking in my hand. The wrapping paper was thick and yellowed at the edges, brittle. I peeled it open with fingers stiff from adrenaline. Inside was a single cassette tape in a plastic shell dusted with mold. The label was blank except for one line in the same looping script: "Play me." My breath caught. I almost dropped it, but something, guilt, curiosity, madness, made me slot it into an old Walkman I kept for emergencies. The device crackled to life in my hand, a flicker of power in the dark. I pressed play. Nothing for the first 10 seconds, just the hiss and a pulse of low-frequency hum. Then, unmistakably, my own voice began, speaking words I had never recorded. I sat on the couch, frozen, as I heard myself describe the night my wife left me, in precise detail. She paused at the door, put a hand on the handle, and looked at me with eyes full of questions I couldn't answer. I told her the swamp called me more urgently than she did. I said I needed the silence of the water more than her voice. My stomach dropped. I hadn't thought those words in decades, and yet there they were, freshly spoken. Beneath my voice came another, hers, soft, almost trembling. "Ethan," it said, "you promised me you'd come back." The tape slowed, warping her tone into something alien. Her words echoed, overlapped with a third voice, a child's relentless, "Sing me to sleep, Daddy." Then the child's voice fractured into static, leaving a hollow gap that felt like a wound in the fabric of sound. I slammed the Walkman shut. The room went deathly silent, save for my dog's worried whimper. I looked down at the tape in my hand, hands trembling so hard I could barely hold it. Whoever sent it knew me, knew the worst thing I never said to my wife the moment I'd lost her. And the tape was proof that my own voice had betrayed me in the silence I thought I had buried forever. By the next night, I was back on the road, driving toward the swamp again. I told myself I needed answers, closure. I took an old cassette recorder, fresh batteries, and the mysterious tape for playback. The sky was overcast, a heavy bruise of clouds pressing down. At exactly 2:17 a.m., I parked at the turnout on Route 41, the same spot where footprints had first led me into the dark. I set the recorder on the hood, clicked to the tape to play, and listened as my fabricated confession and her ghostly plea replayed into the night air. As the tape hissed around me, I heard another sound. Boots crunching on gravel behind the car. I spun, flashlight in hand, but the beam found only the edge of the swamp. No person, no silhouette, just reeds swaying in an imaginary breeze. The recorder kept playing. I walked toward the reeds, each step sinking into mud. A pale glow shimmered on the water's surface. Moonlight threw breaks in the clouds. The cassette droned on with my voice begging for mercy, her voice calling me by name, the child's sing-song demand echoing like a rictus grin. Then the recorder popped out of its cradle, as if thrown by an invisible force, and fell reel first into the mud. The tape continued to spin, voice crackling as water seeped in. I lunged to grab it, but a hand, pale, too long-fingered, shot out of the reeds and snatched the cassette from my grip. I heard the snap of plastic and watched the hand pull away, dragging the tape into the dark water so quickly it left only ripples. I leapt forward, flashed my light into the swamp. For a heartbeat, I saw her, the woman in the brimmed hat, waist deep, her empty eyes reflecting the recorder's red light. She held out her hand, and in it gleamed 2 VHS spools, swatches of magnetic tape dripping in the moonlight. She opened her mouth, a maw of silent static. Then she tilted her head and spoke in a voice that split the night. "You always come back." The swamp claimed her and the spools both, water closing over them like a tomb. I stumbled back to the car, chest heaving, dog barking beside me. The night was still. The tape was gone. And there, on the hood where the recorder had sat, scratched into the metal by claws deeper than any prints I'd ever cast, were 4 words. We never sleep. I flipped the tape and let the hiss fill my headset. Rain's been pounding this window for what feels like days, hard enough to blur the streetlight into a dull orange smear. I'm Detective Jack Rivers, Miami-Dade, retired 6 months now. But tonight I talk like I'm still on shift. Tomorrow I might wish I'd kept my mouth shut. It started just after 11. Edgewater Dispatch hit my pager with a hollow buzz I know too well. Unit available for a possible abandoned cruiser on US 41. Location, marker 83. That's where the Everglades spread out, swamp swallowing blacktop heading inland. They figured I'd want it. Longest record of unexplained scenes on my roster. So I grabbed my raincoat, left the warmth of this office behind, and checked in with dispatch one last time as I climbed into my cruiser. Rivers, en route to marker 83, ETA 10 minutes. Copy that, Detective. Their voices stay calm, never laced with what I feel. The churn in my gut, the weight in my chest. I drive slow, windshield wipers cutting rhythmic swaths through the downpour. Every mile feels like I'm tracing footsteps through a nightmare I can't wake up from. By the time I hit the marker, street lamps vanish and headlights become beacons slicing through fat raindrops. The swamp on either side is a dark mirror, trees bowed under rain, cypress knees rising like graves. I park 30 feet away, engine off, lights off, and step out. The world goes silent but for rain and the static buzz in my radio earpiece. I crouch and move forward, boots sinking in soft mud. The cruiser sits half over the shoulder, engine still running, tailpipe whispering fumes into the wet night. No officer in sight, doors locked tight. I circle around, blood pumping in my ears. Rain slicks down my face, cold against skin that's gone numb to cold long ago. I peer through the driver's window, dash strewn with charts, regional weather patterns, handwritten notes about flood warnings, maybe personal scribbles I can't read, and something else, folded, wedged beneath the radio mic. I tap the glass. It's wet, smeared. My breath fogs the pain as I press my forehead against the cold. A crackle on the radio. Unit 4-12, you there? Possible gators by the ditch. I click off the mic. My jaw clenches. They talk about gators like it's just another night animal shift, but I know there's something darker out here, something that moved this cruiser off the road and left its doors locked from the outside. I wedge my flashlight against the tire and pop the door. It opens with a groan. The smell hits me first. Oil, mildew, and something coppery. Blood, not fresh, but not old enough to vanish entirely. My heart kicks. I sweep the beam across the seats. Nothing but mud and the slick imprint of someone who sat here long enough to leave a body heat stain. I shut the door, take a slow breath through my rain-soaked collar. Then I move to the back. The hatch handle is cold metal under my fingertips. I pause, finger on the latch, because once you open it, you can't unsee what's inside. Rain taps overhead in a steady rhythm, like a warning. I flip up the hatch and my heart slams against my ribs. I freeze, light slicing through darkness, but I don't look down yet. I let the storm roll in around me. The roar of rain, the distant rumble of thunder, the drip, drip, drip from the hatch. My flashlight trembles. I flick off the safety on my Glock, just habit now, though I don't know what I'd do if something lunged at me. I lean closer, jaw tight. The radio in my pocket crackles again, but I ignore it, because right now that hatch is a threshold. Behind me, the Everglades hold their breath. Under my beam, something moves, or I think it does. Something in the corner of my vision, wet and dark, shifting against the spare tire. I swallow past a dry throat. Part of me wants to back away, drive off, hand this to someone else. But another part, call it duty or morbid curiosity, won't let me. I run the barrel of my flashlight along the rim of the trunk. Mud, bits of moss, a smear of something that could be oil or something worse. The rain hammers in my ears. I'm halfway leaning in, frozen, and I swear I feel him, the kid's eyes burning into me, accusing me of coming late, letting him drown in waiting. My throat tightens. I wonder if he even knew he was waiting for help or if no one was coming. Did he call in, screaming for backup? Or did his last breath die on that static radio between calls? Then the hatch tilts more, squeaking rusty hinges. I take a single step forward and brighten the beam. Mud-caked boots pointing at me. Legs bent, ankles locked. The angle's all wrong, like he bounced off the seat and landed here. Tape around his wrists, frayed and peeling. He'd tried moving against it. I inhale. Can't tell his age. Face hidden in shadows. Just the boots, the broken sob caught somewhere. Deep down, I reach out, fingers shaking, and lay it on those boots. Cold, clammy, he's real. Not a hallucination, not a trick of the rain and shadows. My radio goes dead. Static, then silence. Then a scratchy whisper. "Detective, are you there?" The voice is distant, underwater. I should answer, call for backup. Pull him out carefully, check for pulse. Protocol. But I stand there, heart pounding, eyes locked on the boots, drenched in rain and dread. The whisper comes again, but now more urgent. Detective Rivers, but the radio's gone quiet. And behind me, the swamp seems to lean in closer, dark and patient. I take a deep breath, braced myself, and lift the hatch. I drag in a ragged breath, the hatch frame pressing cold into my forearms. The kid's boots are motionless under the stale beam. No shiver, no twitch, nothing. I should have expected it. Dead bodies don't flinch. But something about the angle feels off, like the ankles are twisted too far inward. I brace one knee on the bumper and peer deeper into the trunk. His jacket's soaked, caked with mud and algae, like he'd been submerged before someone taped him up. I shine the light over him, moving slow so every drop of rain on my collar, every distant echo of thunder, feels alive around me. His face remains hidden in shadow, still turned away, pressed against the lid's underside. I lean closer, head almost touching his shoulder, and when I brush the side of his jacket, the fabric crinkles unnaturally. That's when I see it. A glint of metal at his belt loop. Handcuffs. Police issue. But the cuffs are locked around his waist, not his wrists, like someone bound him loosely there to keep him upright in the back. I flick my flashlight around, checking for any sign of another body, any note, any object left for me. Nothing. Just the kid and me, and rain. I reach past the cuffs to unbuckle his belt and free him from the straps. Fingers slick, gloves useless. I pop the snap on his holster. The service revolver inside is empty. 6 clicks and nothing but the echo of a chamber clicking home. The kid didn't fight back, didn't get a chance. I pull him out by his belt, roll his shoulders, and his head lolls forward. No pulse at the neck. His eyes stare skyward, white and glazed. I grip his chin to tilt his head back, shine the light into his face. He looks 16, maybe 17, a cadet, bound and blindfolded with black electrical tape. Who's to say? No badge number visible, no name tag. I lift the jacket just enough to test for tags. A nameless uniform beneath. My radio crackles once, then dies. Static so thick it's like it's swallowing the hiss of the hatch, the slap of rain, the zoinks of my own heartbeat. I jump, retrace my steps to close the hatch. Rain puddles in the gap, washing away his fingerprints, or anyone's. I wipe my gloves on my pants, swallow a dry cough. I should call this in. I should get backup, forensics, an ambulance. But every instinct in me screams to stay, to find out who left him here and why. I set him on the ground beside the cruiser, mud spattering along the seams of his trousers. I kneel and check his pockets. Wallet's gone, phone's missing. Only a crumpled Polaroid, half covered in mud, tucked into his shirt pocket. I ease it out with one gloved finger. The photo is dripping, edges curling. I open it to find him, standing by that same cruiser. Lights off, engine on, marker 83 in view. Behind him stands a man in full uniform. Precinct badge shining wet, dark brim of a patrol cap shadowing his face. The figure's hand rests on the kid's shoulder. Too casual, too familiar. The angle is perfect. They look like teammates. But the figure's face is obscured, tilting away from the camera. No identification. A raindrop lands on the photo, creating a smear across the blurred uniform. I stare, trying to make out who that man is. Then I lean back against the hood, let the kid's weight drop beside me. Cold mud seeps through my pants. I tuck the Polaroid into my inside pocket, knowing it'll warp, knowing I need to preserve it. I stand and circle the cruiser, flashlight dancing over every inch of metal. The front grille, scratch marks. Side panel, a dent like it rammed something. Rear bumper, misaligned, hanging loose. Someone drove this off-road recently, or the kid did. Maybe they were chasing him. Maybe he chased them. My collar's soaked, water pooling at my cuffs. I flick my gaze to the swamp. Black water pooling under cypress roots. Frogs croaking somewhere. Gators mostly silent this time of night. But I swear I see movement beyond the trees. A flicker of headlights like another cruiser on the service road. I shine my light toward the tree line. Nothing, just rain. Maybe it's my mind, my gut twisting again. I'm not on patrol. I shouldn't be chasing phantoms, but this kid, he was real. His boots, his eyes, his tape. Someone put him there, someone who wanted me to find him. I step to the driver's side and peer in again. Now, the dashboard notes make sense. Shift logs overwritten with scrawled letters, call signs, times, initials I've never seen. Rivers appears once, scribbled over another name. A calibration chart, maybe for the onboard computer, but marked Test 0430. I snap a photo with my phone. No service out here, but it'll save to the SD card. I lean over and notice something behind the glove compartment. A small panel, slightly ajar. I unlatch it, finding a tangle of wires and a second hidden speaker. Looks like someone rigged the radio to record. Tape deck for evidence gathering or surveillance, tracking whoever drove this cruiser. My pulse speeds, mind racing through possibilities. Was someone using this vehicle as bait? A ghost car to lure resonance from the swamp? Was the kid a scapegoat, frame-up fodder? Who winds up in that trunk, cadet or suspect? And why attach him to a dead cruiser? My radio sputters alive. Rivers, you there? Dispatch, calm but clipped. We lost signal. Try again. I whisper into the mic, half expecting static. I need units. Then the line goes dead again. Gone, like someone yanked the cord. A strobe of lightning splits the sky, illuminating dozens of droplets hanging in the air like diamonds. In that flash, I see him. The figure from the Polaroid, standing 10 feet away, just past the driver's door. Frozen silhouette in the driving sheets of rain. The hat brim casts his face in shadow, dark gloves on his hands. He holds something. Mirror-polished badge, visible for a heartbeat, then gone as the clouds swallow the light. I snap off my flashlight, spin, press myself flat against the hood. I draw my Glock, aim at where he stood. Nothing. Only the road, slick and empty. I check the rear view. No headlights, no taillights, no fear. The swamp breeze shifts, carrying a rasping whisper that might be my name, or the rain. I stand, grip my gun so hard I feel splinters through my gloves. I turn on the headlights, high beams blasting into the Everglades. Trees snap into view, dripping with moss. Then the lights catch the rearview mirror. The kid's Polaroid, taped to the glass, face outward. Impossible. I didn't tape it there. It's soaked, stuck to the mirror's edge. I approach the cruiser, stomach curling. The trunk latch clicks. Slowly, the hatch rises on its own. Rain cascades down its curved lip like a waterfall. Inside, there are no boots this time. Just the forest floor, dirt, leaves, a broken patrol cone. I swing the hatch shut, backhand the metal until my knuckles bleed. I drop to my knees, breathe in the mud-scented air, and whisper to the rain, "Who are you? What do you want?" A distant thunder rolls across the swamp, louder this time, and my radio crackles back. "Detective Rivers, you copy?" But the voice sounds wrong, knowledgeable about things no dispatcher should know. "Rivers, they found something," it says. "What?" I demand, voice snapping. "Marker 83, they found the other cruiser." Behind me, headlights flare. 2 cruisers coast to a stop, doors opening in unison. I stand, holstered gun raised. The nearest officer steps forward, rain dripping off his badge. I freeze. His face I recognize. But he's not on the job list. He's not alive. He tilts his head, expression unreadable. Rain slicks his uniform. He says my name softly, as if it's a question. I swallow, throat tight. "Detective Rivers," he says. And before I can answer, he steps aside, revealing the second cruiser. Lights off, engine running. Trunk open. Inside, 2 pairs of boots. One's the kid's, the other mine. I stare at the 2 cruisers, heart hammering so loud it echoes in my ears. The officer who steps forward, him, moves with a deliberate calm, like he's been rehearsing this moment. Rain slicks his uniform, the badge at his chest glinting under the beam of my headlights. He doesn't reach for his gun, he doesn't say a word. I holster mine, jamming the butt into my hip as I step closer. Water sloshes through my boots, cold spreading up my legs. My breath comes ragged, billowing clouds in the bright glare of the headlights. I watch the badge. Precinct 4-12. Same precinct the dispatch logs had overwritten with my name. Same precinct that kid might have belonged to. Same precinct this ghostly figure claims. "Who are you?" I rasp, voice thick with thunder and mud. He tilts his head, lips parting just enough for steam to drift outward. "Detective Rivers." My stomach twists. Impossible. I'm Rivers. I'm the one recording now. My voice catches. If I am, then who am I talking to? He steps aside without looking at me, gesturing toward the second cruiser. "Your file." Hands trembling, I approach the open trunk. Inside, 2 sets of boots. One the kid's, the other mine. Mud-caked and identical to the ones I'm wearing now. My heart jolts. I look up. He's following my gaze. Silent. Patient. I lean into the light, reach past the boots, and trace the seams of the jacket draped over faint contours. There's a shape pressed inside. A body, but not the kid's. Furrows of fabric where something heavy lies folded. My hand hovers, then plunges into the darkness. The instant my fingers brush cloth, the figure behind me clears his throat. I whirl, flashlight swinging in a tight arc, nothing but rain and shadows. I stare at my own hand, now clutching a soaked package. An old, leather-bound notebook, its cover mottled with mud and embossed with my name in fading gold leaf. Jack Rivers, confidential. I tear it open. Page 1. My own words. Words I never wrote. Lines of scrawled ink describing this very night, predicting every detail. Abandoned cruiser, the kid in cuffs, the Polaroid, my name on the dashboard. Paragraph after paragraph of case notes I never typed, confessions I never spoke. I whip my head around. The figure stands closer now. 2 strides, a silhouette bleeding into the downpour. Your confession, he murmurs, voice low like gravel rolling downhill. Why are you here, Rivers? What are you hiding? The notebook trembles against my palm. I flip pages, each one time-stamped in the last hour, each entry signed with my own shaky scrawl. Memories of cases unsolved, faces I couldn't save, victims left in trunks, bodies left to be found in abandoned cars. The entry for tonight reads, I will find you, I will expose you, I will bury you in your own story. Underneath, a smudge of blood. My legs give way. I drop to one knee, rain hissing against the pages. The notebook slips, pages fluttering madly before settling. I glance up, the figure is gone. No footprints, no outline, no whisper beyond the rain. Just 2 cruisers, their trunks open like empty graves, boots waiting on the lip of the second. I scramble to my feet, heart slamming so hard I fear it'll burst. I back away, then stop. There, on the ground between the boots, lies the kid's Polaroid. Edges curled, face cracked. I kneel, pick it up. The cadet stands in front of me, eyes wide and pleading. Behind him, in the blurred background, stands me, Detective Rivers, handcuffed to a post under the streetlight in this very spot. His eyes lock with mine through the photo. Cold dread coils in my gut. My voice catches. What have I done? The rain roars. The swamp presses in closer, choking off the road. The cruiser's engines tick in the cooling air, lights still off. I slip the Polaroid into my coat, breath catching on the promise of lightning overhead. I look at the open notebooks in the first cruiser, pages strewn like corpses. Then at the trunks, at the boots, at the badge on the stranger's chest. I realize this night, this case, was never about a missing cadet. It was about me, the hunter becoming prey in my own hunt, trapped in a story I'm both author and victim of. And somewhere beyond the rain, beyond the static in my radio, the real Detective Rivers is waiting, cuffed to a signpost in the Everglades, exposed, alone, with nothing but his own secrets for company. I stand at the threshold, rain slicing my face, notebook and photo in hand. Every instinct screams to break radio silence, call for help, invert this nightmare. But the final entry in the notebook burns in my memory. No one comes for you, Rivers. The swamp is silent now, patient as ever. I turn off the headlights. Darkness smothers the cruisers. Rain blurs the road behind me. And as I step forward, the notebooks snap shut on their own. Trunks clang, and behind me I hear the soft click of a handcuffs locking. My reflection flickers in the puddle at my feet, distorted, broken. I wipe my face, rain and tears mingling, and whisper into the dark. What story ends with the detective in cuffs? I hit record again and swallow hard. The swamp's silence has weight now, as if it's listening. I step away from the cruisers, the rain lashing my face, and stride toward the tree line. The notebooks lie scattered at my feet, pages glued together by mud and ink. I ignore them. My mind races, trying to piece together what just happened. How I became the victim in my own investigation, how the detective and the cadet both ended up in trunks, how the swamp conjured phantoms from my past. I need answers. I need to see this through. I pull my coat tighter and forge into the Everglades scrub, pushing past a sawgrass that whips my legs. Headlights behind me cut through the darkness. 2 patrol cars, engines idling, doors open. But no officers step out. I don't wait. I follow a narrow service road marked by rusted signs and forgotten reflectors. Every footstep splashes in mud, every breath tastes of chlorophyll and decay. The road curves, dead ends at an old canal bridge. The metal beams overhead bend like arthritic fingers, dripping with moss. Underneath, water black as ink pools. No current. I crouch at the edge, scanning the surface, expecting to see boots bobbing, hands reaching. Nothing moves but the ripples from my flashlight catch. I shine the beam across the canal bank. Footprints pressed in the mud, leading away toward the trees. I stand and follow them, single prints that shift from boot sole to bare skin as they vanish into the brush. My pulse pounds. I strain to hear. Some animal rustling? A voice? The rain muffles everything. Then, just ahead, the prints end at a clearing under an ancient oak. Hanging from a low branch is a single police cap, visor snapped forward, water dripping from its brim. The badge pinned to it reads, Miami-Dade, Detective Jack Rivers. My legs give out again. I sink to the wet ground, stare at that cap. I know the weight of it, the authority, the trust it carries. Now it sits empty, abandoned like that kid. I stand and reach, lifted by the brim. It's soaked through, brim soft. Inside the sweatband, someone scrawled in black marker, Never trusted the uniform. My skin crawls. Someone marked it, someone who knew me. A predator who haunted my nights. I slip the cap into my coat and keep moving, stumbling over roots. I emerge at a small clearing where moonlight breaks through clouds, illuminating a forgotten patrol shack. Its wood rotting, windows shattered. A faint glow seeps from inside. My hand drops to my holster. I steel myself and step toward the door, light raised. The shack's threshold is slick with moss. I push inside. Floorboards sag, permit entry into gloom heavy with stale cigarette smoke. The beam catches on something pinned to the wall. A large map of US 41 and Highway 27. Pushpins marking locations. Edgewater, marker 83, this very shack, joined by red string. Beneath it, a timeline. January 17th, 1992, Trooper Clausen. February 2nd, Officer Weber. February 24th, Detective Freeman. And now, July 6th, 2025, Detective Rivers. My name, circled in jagged red. I freeze. The map shows more dates and places, storms yet to come, victims yet to be discovered. The killer planned this for years, maybe decades. This isn't random, it's ritual. I step closer, light sweeping over newspaper clippings taped around the map. Headlines about missing officers, abandoned cruisers, cadets lost in the swamp. Pictures of the frozen bodies in trunks, tortured, staged. My eyes dart to the far wall, where a Polaroid collage hangs, dozens of faces, each wet with mud, each labeled with a case number. The kid's photo is there, mine too, smeared at the top. A slow creak behind me, I spin, empty air. Rain patters on the tin roof. The shack trembles with wind. I exhale, forced breath, then catch movement, water pooling under the door, dripping down the frame, and footprints in it, leading toward a back room. I follow, heart pounding. Inside, a battered desk sits under a single bare bulb. Papers strewn, journal entries, pages ripped from my own notebook, scribbled letters in a hand vaguely familiar. My handwriting but twisted, distorted, drenched in malice. On the desk lies a laptop, its screen cracked but still flickering. I bend to open it. Password, Rivers, 1992. I enter and see folders. Operations, surveillance, confessions. I click Confessions, a file named riversconfession.wav. My blood runs cold. This shack must be the killer's lair, where he's been collecting evidence, audio files, notebooks, my life laid bare. I hit play. My voice echoes. Recordings I never made. Admissions I never spoke. Confessions of guilt. I didn't answer the call fast enough. I left her bleeding in the ditch. I covered up the report. Each clip tortures me. I drop to my knees, head in hands as rain lashes through broken windows. Then, a new voice starts mid-file, a whisper cutting through static. You know why I brought you here, Jack. You broke your oath. You left them to die. The whisper grows into a patient, almost boastful drawl. I watched you chase ghosts, Rivers. Now the ghost is you. My heart freezes. The whisper laughs, low and cruel. I slam the laptop shut, stand, whip around. The shack door bursts inward. Water sloshes in. A tall figure fills the entrance. Slender silhouette, cap perched low, rain streaming off shoulders. I raise my gun, finger tight. Step away, I bark, voice cracking. He tilts his head, rain dripping from the brim. One gloved hand lifts, motioning me closer. I don't move. The interior light flickers, reveals his badge, Miami-Dade. But the nameplate reads Sunny Hayes. That name means nothing to me. Or does it? Something in the look, a haunted familiarity. Eyes like my own, haunted by similar demons. He steps in, gaze never leaving mine. You abandoned your partner, he says quietly. Left her bleeding by the side of the road. Cover up so you could chase the bigger case. My throat seizes. I remember now, a night 10 years ago, rain-slick streets, a rookie shot, bleeding out as I chased a serial arsonist. I didn't radio for backup. I went after the fire watch. By the time I got back, she was gone. The department closed it as unfortunate collateral. I intel logged it to preserve my career. Pain sears through me. I lower my gun. Sunny Hayes steps closer. Rain tracks down his uniform. I was her partner. His hand points at the map. I died here. He nods toward the entrance, toward the broken door. And I waited. He advances and the floorboards groan. I stumble back, holstering reflex kicking in, but hands still tight on the barrel. He raises one finger, a single warning. I told you. No one comes. He leans close. I came. My flashlight flickers. The cabin dims. Sunny's face drifts between shadow and light. Cold, determined, unforgiving. Your secrets feed me, he says, and now I'll feed on you. He steps aside, revealing the back wall, another hatch hidden, a narrow crawl space beyond. Through it, night sky winks. Sunny nods toward it. Escape. Salvation or deeper torment? The map's strings lead there, past the canal, beneath the trees, to a rusted service tunnel I saw on the roadside sign, half buried by overgrowth. He gives one last nod. Follow your story home, Rivers. Then he turns, disappears into shadows. My heart races. I shut down the laptop, grab the notebooks, cap, photo, and head for the hatch. The soft click of handcuffs echoes from behind. I don't look back. I crawl through the narrow space, slick with moss, inch by inch, pulling myself on elbows until I break through roots into a ditch. I stand under dripping vines, chest heaving, mud clinging. Ahead, the road stretches, empty. Rain slicks the pavement like glass. No cruisers, no lights, no footprints. Just me, soaked and alone, clutching evidence of my guilt and the confession that I never made. I climb onto the road, balance on the yellow line, and look back toward the trees. The shack, hidden now, disappears in the rain. My boots sink in a puddle. I check my pockets. Cap, notebook, photo, only remnants of this night. My phone buzzes. 1 bar of signal. A message from Edgewater Dispatch. Detective Rivers, we need you. Units found the other cruiser at marker 83. Bodies recovered. You're late. I pocket the phone. I step forward toward the horizon where streetlights waver in the storm. I walk without running, without looking back. Every drop of rain pounds into my bones, and I know the swamp has released me, for now, but the story remains unfinished. The final twist hasn't come, and there are still 3 more cases on that map. The night stretches endlessly, and I walk on, a detective bound by his own sins, following a trail only he can see, toward a confrontation that will decide whether he saves himself or becomes another ghost in the Everglades. The rain never let up. It drenched my coat, soaked through every layer until I felt it clinging to my skin like a second uniform, a reminder I could never shed. I walked under the black glaze of cypress trees, following the yellow line of the road toward the next pushpin on the map. Marker 42 on Highway A1A, the spot where an abandoned beachfront motel had surfaced in the killer's timeline years ago. That was my destination now, my next confession waiting in the dark. Each step sloshed in ankle-deep water. The night air tasted of salt and rot, of decaying seagrass and the metallic tang of blood I carried in my pockets. I kept my head low against the wind, listening for any anomaly beyond the drumming rain. Streetlights flickered in the distance, one by one, as if shuddering against what I was about to uncover. I pulled the brim of my cap down tighter, feeling the wet leather warp under my fingers, the scrawl on its band. Never trusted the uniform, smudged but ominous. A half-mile from the main road, the motel materialized through a curtain of rain. A low 2-story block of concrete, its pastel paint peeling, windows boarded or shattered. A flicker of neon buzzed in the entryway. Vacancy, though no vacancy sign would ever lure another soul here. I paused at the rusted, wrought-iron arch marking the driveway, twisted into a grotesque welcome. Beneath it, the words Fitzgerald's Inn, though the letters were missing spokes, so half the name read GRALDSNN. That absence felt deliberate, like an invitation to fill in the blanks with dread. I approached the office door, battered wood warped from water. A single lamp inside cast a dull yellow glow through the gap. I knocked once. No answer. Then twice. My knuckles throbbed. I turned the handle. It gave. I stepped into a stale foyer thick with mold and memories. The receptionist's desk sat under the lamp, papers strewn like corpses across its surface. Registration cards, smeared with water and ink, stamped dates from March of 1989, 3 days before the first drunk victim in Minneapolis. Each card read the same name, Harper, Thomas, though the handwriting varied, as if penned by different hands in different states of mind. I lifted one card, traced my thumb over the wet script. The initials TH scratched twice next to my own name. J.R. Next to that, a scrawl, last seen alive. I dropped it, heart tightening, and moved deeper. Behind the desk, a narrow hallway led toward the rooms. I flicked on my flashlight. The beam ricocheted off water pooling in tiles, revealing footprints, bare footprints, heading down the corridor. No boots this time, something soft and human. I followed them, pausing outside room 7. The door hung open on one hinge, swinging slightly in the wind coming through broken windows. Inside was a kitchenette, chipped sink, rusted fridge door hanging ajar, mold crawling over the tiles like black veins. On the countertop, a Polaroid lay face down, edges curling. I hesitated. My finger itched over the pistol grip. Then I picked it up, flipped it. The picture showed me, staring out of this very kitchenette, cap in hand, mouth open as if I'd been shouting. Behind me stood the cadet, Phillips. No, I didn't know his name. But in the photo he did, a thin smile on his lips. Then another shape in the window reflection. The uniformed stranger, badge glinting. A breeze blew through the room, rattling the broken glass. The photo fluttered from my fingers and drifted to the floor. I whipped around, expecting someone there, someone waiting, but saw nothing but the cracked linoleum floor, mottled with dark stains. The footprints continued into the next room. I followed, each step weighted with dread. Room 8 was worse. A motel room turned shrine. Bed frame stripped of mattress. Iron springs sagging. On the floor, calendars fell from the wall, pages torn, dates circled, erased, redacted. Newspaper clippings tacked above, headlines about the Fitzgerald Inn murders, about the bodies found in trunks, about me, Detective Rivers, investigating abandoned cruisers. Someone had been here, obsessively documenting every detail of my life, my mistakes, my confession. In the middle of the room, a pair of boots sat side by side, clean and polished, yours and mine, shining in the beam of my flashlight. No body inside them. Instead, the boots faced the open window, toes pointed to the ocean. I approached, hand trembling. The window frame was spattered with salt water and old blood. I reached out, ran a finger through the drip, felt the grit of sand and rust. I closed my eyes, thinking I heard laughter, faint and childlike, echoing from the waves. I shook my head, reopened my eyes. The boots were gone, just scattered footprints and dust. My pistol clicked as I raised it, scanning the dark. I backed out of the room, heart racing, and headed back toward the hall. I heard a voice behind me, low, taunting, a whisper I recognized from the shack recordings. "You think you're safe in daylight, Rivers." I spun, flashlight arm extended. A silhouette stood there, small, hunched under the raincoat, face hidden. I saw the badge glint on his chest, Sonny Hayes or another ghost of my guilt. The figure stepped close, voice near my ear. "Your story ends here. You're part of the exhibit now." I shoved him with my shoulder, muscle memory pushing against a phantom. The wind caught me, threw me off balance, and I fell back into the hallway. My flashlight skittered across the tile, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled for it, breathing hard, mind reeling. Then I heard it. Footsteps approaching, slow, deliberate. Not wet footprints, but boots on tile. Someone, or something, coming down the hall toward me. I clicked the flashlight back on. The hallway stretched empty, walls lined with peeling wallpaper. The footprints I followed were gone. In their place, a single line of red paint traced from the door of room 7 to the office. It dripped, fresh. I crouched and touched it. It was too thick for blood, too bright, yet it still stained my glove. Then the voice again, echoing softly behind me. "Turn around, Rivers." I stood, unable to move. The beam of my flashlight settled on the end of the hall. There, forming from the gloom, were dozens of Polaroids pinned to the walls. Portraits of victims, officers, cadets, each face smeared, each name crossed out, each date ticked forward in time. And at the center, my photo, arms raised as if surrendering, cap in hand, eyes wide with realization. Underneath, one word: next. My pulse hammered. I took one step backward, but the floor gave way, rot beneath the tile, waterlogged wood splintering. I stumbled, fell through a hole into darkness. Cold water rushed up to my knees, swirling around something sharp. I scrambled, hand hitting metal. An old suitcase, rusted locks intact. I hauled it free, pried it open. Inside lay my uniform, pressed and clean, folded with surgical precision. No mud, no blood. and atop it, a folded note in the cadet's handwriting. You weren't alone, Rivers. You never will be. A thunderclap shook the ceiling. The room lit in a white flash, revealing the boots of the stranger, standing above me. I looked up at badge shining at chest level. Miami-Dade, Sonny Hayes. He knelt, handed me the folded note. His eyes met mine, reflection of my own guilt. He whispered, "Read it." I opened the note with shaking hands. I failed her. You failed me. Now we both walk this road together. The lights flickered, died, and I was in utter blackness, alone with wet uniform in one hand, the note in the other. The suitcase lid clanged closed above me. Somewhere, the neon vacancy sign buzzed back to life, casting an unsteady pink glow through the boarded windows. And in that pulsing light I felt the corridor behind me shift, the walls breathing, the motel itself turning to watch. I pressed my back against the soggy suitcase, note pressed to my chest, and whispered to the rain, "Who am I saving now?" My lungs burn as I claw my way out of the slick hole, suitcase and note slipping from my grasp to clatter against the motel's rotten wood. I emerge into the dim corridor, water streaming from my coat, the neon pink glow of the vacancy sign pulsing through shattered windows. My boots squelch on the soggy tile as I pull myself upright, heart hammering against ribs that ache from the fall. The air tastes of rot and salt, heavy with the promise of storms yet to come. I stare down the hallway, every door a dark mouth waiting to swallow me, every step echoing in the hush that follows the rain's pounding. I pick up the suitcase, heft it by its corroded handle. It throbs in my hand, heavier than steel. Inside that case is my own uniform, clean, pressed, and mocking. I can't wear it. It's a relic of who I was before I left her in the ditch. I unzip the flap and press the fabric to my face, inhaling the scent of starch and memory. My fingers trace the folds, following the seams I stitched with pride. Now, those seams feel like cracks in my story, seams ready to burst. I shudder, let the uniform fall back into the case, and snap it shut. The note burns in my pocket, cadet's cramped handwriting, simple words that carry the weight of accusation. You weren't alone, Rivers. You never will be. I smooth the paper flat, fingertips brushing the wet ink. Who left it? Sonny Hayes? Or the phantom in the swamp? My grip tightens, knuckles white. The corridor is silent again, the neon buzz retreating into static. Something moves in the corner of my eye. A flicker of motion by roommate's door. I freeze, sweat and rain mingling on my brow. Then I see it. A Polaroid leaning against the frame, face down in standing water. My flashlight beam trembles as I approach. The photo is soaked, corners curling. I bend and lift it free, feeling the soft give of emulsion under my gloves. I flip it over. Me, again. Crouched over a body in a trunk. Radio mic pressed to my lips. Face twisted in fear. Only now the body is mine, pinned beneath a tarp in some backlot. My own boots stick out, tips pointing to the sky. My heart skips. I look around. The hallway seems to lean inward. Walls closing as if the motel itself wants me to stare. I tuck the photo into my breast pocket, need to keep it close to calm the tremors in my chest. I force myself to walk, each step a negotiation with panic. The end of the hall slopes down toward the office, the desk where registration cards lay like wet paper corpses. I pass the string map, pins untouched since I left it. They glitter in the neon's ghostlight, each one a marker of death. I run a finger along the string from marker 83 to 42, then beyond to the next pushpin, marker 26, the abandoned gas station on Highway 27. That's my next stop. I know it, feel it in my bones. The killer's pattern demands it. My radio crackles to life. Static at first, then dispatch. Detective Rivers, status? The voice is clipped, professional, unaware that I'm soaked to the skin, carrying evidence of my own guilt. I hover the button on the mic, stare at it. If I answer, they'll send units to the motel to find a detective who vanished into the swamp. If I stay silent, I risk being cut off from help I need. My finger hovers. I let the radio die back into silence. I step into the office, suitcase dangling at my side. The lamp overhead buzzes, its shade wobbling on a crooked pivot. I flip it off, plunging the room into grim half-light. Desk drawers gape open, papers strewn like victims. On the wall behind, bulletin boards are littered with more Polaroids, officers I once worked with, suspects I interrogated, witnesses I lost track of. Every face is scratched out, name erased in thick black marker. Only one remains unmarked, mine, pinned dead center. I move to the board, and as I raise my hand, the lamp snaps back on, a white flash that stuns me blind. The suitcase thumps against the desk. When my vision clears, the board is different. The pins have shifted. My photo is now at the edge, next to an empty spot with no pushpin, just a dirty scrap of paper reading J5, and below that, scrawled in red, final exhibit. My breath catches. J5. 5 officers killed, 1 cadet, and me, number 6, final exhibit. The board seems to pulse, as if alive, hungering for one last victim. I step back, suitcase thumping. I climb onto the desk, sweat and rain slick beneath me, and grab the board's frame. I yank it from the wall. The screws scream as they twist free. I hold it shaky, pins dangling, photos swaying. I slam it onto the desk. The wall shudders, cracks spiderwebbing outward like an open wound. I hear movement behind the door, slow, measured footsteps. Not water, not wind, real boots. My heart leaps. I kick the door shut and slide the bolt. My flashlight beam sweeps the room. Nothing beyond mattresses stacked against the wall, a broken mirror, and the shadowed outline of a mop bucket. I back away, sink to my heels, suitcase upright beside me. The bolt rattles, a slow click. Someone tests it. I lift my head. Through the gap beneath the door, a sliver of light, the neon signs pulse, and then the reflection. A cap brimmed in pink. Sonny Hayes' grin cut across the edge of the door. His breathing breathes through the crack. "Did you really think it would end here?" he seems to say. I press my palms against the wood, knuckles cracking. I grip the suitcase handle and stand. "You want something? Take it!" I shout. "Take it all. My uniform, my confession, my life. Just let me go." Rain drums in the darkness, swirling around the office. The neon glows hotter, casting blood-red light through the cracks. The footsteps pause. Then a soft, mocking cough. The bolt rattles again. I brace my shoulder, ready to shove. The light flares. The door shutters, splinters. I close my eyes, ready for impact. Then silence. My throat is parched. I breathe in the thick air. The suitcase feels impossibly heavy, full of my sins. The neon flickers. In the hush, I think I hear my own heartbeat. Steady, relentless, dragging me toward the next reckoning. I don't know if I can open the door. I don't know if I want to face what waits beyond. My mind races with questions. Who set this trap? What happens after the final exhibit? And will the swamp ever let me leave its story? Footsteps retreat. The bolt clicks open on its own. My hand freezes on the suitcase handle. I stare at the gap, at the creeping neon glow, at the dark beyond. I swallow the question lodged in my throat and take a step toward the unknown. The first light of dawn glimmers on the horizon, a pale promise breaking through the storm clouds. I trudged down the shoulder of Highway 27, suitcase in one hand, notebook and Polaroid in my pockets, cap pulled low against the driving rain. Behind me shrieks the motel's neon sign, blinking out its vacancy that's never been true. Ahead lies the old gas station, the next pushpin on the killer's map, and the place where I'll face the evidence of my own undoing. I can still feel the motel's hollow gaze on my back, its walls hungry for one more confession. But I don't look back. I cross the slick pavement where the yellow line weaves between puddles. Every step echoes in the empty dawn. Electric poles stand like crooked sentinels, their wires humming in the storm wind. I pause beneath one to catch my breath, the suitcase heavy as regret, and wipe mud from the scrawl on the note. You weren't alone, Rivers. You never will be. Those words burn like a brand. I glance at the Polaroid in my pocket, me kneeling over my own body in a trunk. The image shifts under the thin plastic sleeve, the cadet's hollow stare chasing me. I press the photo flat, pin it with a trembling finger against my chest, and inch forward. The gas station looms ahead, a low concrete block, its canopy sagging, pumps broken and rusted. 2 empty signposts flank it and once advertised premium and diesel. Now only empty frames remain, swaying in the gale. The station office window is boarded with plywood. Through the cracks, I see the faint glow of fluorescent flicker before it dies. A chain-link fence encloses the lot, gate rusted half open as if inviting me in. I step through, boots squelching in oil-slick puddles, and feel the first real twinge of fear. This place is death's anteroom. I circle the station on the wet asphalt, flashlight beam dancing over broken glass and coils of hose. The pumps stand silent, handles torn off, hoses spitting water. I crouch beside one, rust and algae coat its base. Under the spigot's drip, I notice footprints. Muddy boot prints leading from the pumps to the office door, then doubling back. I trail them to a side window higher up, cracked and smeared. I shine my light inside. An old desk, toppled chair, a shattered cash register. Bits of paper flutter in the breeze like wounded birds. I press my palm to the window, cold glass cutting through my glove. There, scrawled in chalk on the wall behind the counter, call sign 4. 12 missed responses. 37. Unanswered cries. 5. My breath catches. 4-12- my unit. 37 calls. I never logged that night 10 years ago. 5 cries. I lost 5 officers in my tenure. Chalk dust drifts as I back away, heart pounding. I force myself to move around to the front door. The lock's broken, the knob spins. I step inside. The air is stale, damp with gasoline and mildew. My flashlight beam picks out old bulletin boards plastered with flyers. Missing since July 5th, 2025. Officer Phillips. Help find Rivers. Reward offered. I step closer, reading, Officer Phillips, Cadet Phillips, same boy I found in that cruiser. Someone put up wanted posters for me, like I'm the fugitive. My reflection in a cracked mirror shows my face pale, eyes bloodshot. I shake it off and press on. The main room is littered with debris. Empty coffee cups, scrap paper, a broken radio. I sweep my light across the mess until I find it. A Pittman brand tape recorder, still blinking red. Recording. Beside it, a Polaroid strip lies on the counter. 3 frames from a photo booth. Frame 1, the cadet smiling beside me, both in uniform, bodies posed in front of a curtain. Frame 2, the stranger, the phantom, photobombing us badge in hand. Frame 3, just me, alone, hands pressed to my face in terror. Underneath, scrawled in black marker, I catch myself. My hands shake so badly I drop the strip. It slides across the floor and lands under a pool of oil. I'm about to step forward, heart roaring, when the tape recorder clicks. I freeze. A scratchy voice loops. I can't save them, but you can't save yourself. Keep running, detective. Keep recording. Then silence. I click off the recorder. No tape eject, no way to stop it. I rip batteries free, then shove the recorder into my coat. I need the evidence. I need to know who set this trap. I back toward the door and see on the dusty floor a single, bare footprint, smaller than my own, damp and fresh. It leads down a narrow corridor behind the office. I follow it, flashlight guiding me through a side door into the cavernous garage. Overhead, lights flicker, walls lined with oil drums and discarded tires. In the center, a service pit yawns open, cover pushed aside. I shine my light down. Cinder blocks form a crude staircase, descending into darkness. This place shouldn't exist. Gas stations don't come with hidden stairwells. My pulse surges. Every instinct screams to turn back. But the killer's pattern demands a descent, another layer of revelation. I swallow hard, slip off my coat and hook the suitcase onto my shoulder straps. I step onto the first cinder block, careful, mud and oil slick beneath my boots. I drop suitcase to the edge, open it, and retrieve the notebook. I tuck it into my inside pocket, beneath my shirt, where its pages touch my skin. Then I climb down. The pit walls are damp concrete, water dripping from cracks. The air grows cold, stale. Mosquitoes buzz in the beam, their wings like knives. I descend until I reach a makeshift door carved into the far wall. Plywood hung on rusted hinges. I brace my shoulder and push. It swings inward on a groan, revealing a shaft of pale light. I step through into a narrow tunnel, water at ankle height pooling on the floor. The tunnel slopes downward, echoing with footsteps that aren't mine. I pause to listen. Drip, drip, drip. And beneath it, the echo of tapping metal like a typewriter in use. A humming, electric, mechanical. I flick on the flashlight's strobe setting. Its pulsed beam reveals walls lined with monitors, bank after bank of screens, each showing a different angle of every crime scene I've called in over the years. Some show me young Detective Rivers sweating at a flaming arson site, Rivers cuffing a suspect, Rivers walking past a bleeding partner. Others show the cadet and the stranger always together, and one screen glows larger than the rest. Live Feed, Unit 412. I step closer. The camera feed switched to my cruiser idling on US 41, marker 83, now empty again. Then to the back of the motel, room 8, empty corridor. Then to here, this tunnel. I hear a click behind me. I whirl. The tunnel's opening is sealed by the plywood door. I slip my shoulder under it, shove, but it's locked from the other side. The cameras flicker. A low hum rises as if powering a predator awakened. I scramble back toward the door, slamming against it. I pound with my fists. The suitcase drops. I sprint back to haul it up, but something catches my ankle. I look down. A cable wraps around my boot, the one from the monitors. It trails away into the darkness and disappears under a grate at the tunnel's rim. I yank my foot free and pull the suitcase against the door. I brace my shoulder and kick. The lock splinters. The door gives and swings open. I scramble through, suitcase and all, into the pit. The plywood crashes behind me. I gasp in wet air, chest heaving. I stand in the garage, suitcase in hand, flashlight pulsing over tools and driftwood. I step forward and hear it. The hiss of a diesel engine. I freeze. Then, through the garage's main roll-up door, moonlight cuts a slit across the oil-stained floor. and a massive semi-truck idles in the rain, headlights off. The cab door opens. I see the stranger in uniform, cap brim low, stepping down onto the wet pavement. Rain drips off his shoulders. He pats the driver's side fender, then faces me. I raise my light. He lifts his hand in an acknowledgement. No words, just the curl of his fingers. Behind him, the trailer looms dark, its doors shut tight. Painted in chipped letters, Unit 412, Final Exhibit. He tilts his head as if asking, "Ready?" I swallow against the lump in my throat. Every instinct screams to refuse, to run, to burn this place down, but the truck's wheels groan, primed to roll. The stranger lifts a hand to his earpiece, and the diesel burbles. I take a single step forward, suitcase swinging. Rain hammers the cab, sluicing down the metal. I can't see his face, but I know the badge pinned there. Sonny Hayes, or more likely, the ghost of every victim I ever left behind, come to collect. I plant my feet and wait. The cab door slams shut behind him. Engine roars. The truck's lights flick on, and the trailer interior glows briefly, a hollow coffin. My flashlight beam catches the delivery ramp sliding down. It hits the ground with a clang. The trailer is tall, cavernous. My heart thumps as the stranger steps back, gesturing for me to enter. I glance at the highway, empty save for me. I glance at the motel across the lot, neon pulsing. There's no turning back. The truck's engine idles, hungering. I grip the suitcase handle, chest tight, and exhale. The rain drums around me like applause for a condemned man. I step onto the ramp. Every slosh of my boots echoes in the empty trailer. At the far end, taillights glow red, a lone pushpin on a board no one else sees. I pause at the threshold. Behind me, the gas station waits, custodian of forgotten sins. Ahead, the final chamber, where the killer archives his trophies and authors the last confession. I lift my suitcase. With the last of my strength, I hand it to the stranger, who catches it in gloved hands. I step fully inside. The ramp rises, sealing me in darkness broken only by the red exit signs overhead. The semi-trailer rolls forward, tires cutting through flooded blacktop. The headlights vanish into the storm, taking me away from the world I knew and toward the truth that awaits in the final section of this confession. I stand alone in the belly of the beast, suitcase and Polaroid in hand, as the trailer's doors swing shut. The red lights blink once, twice, and then the darkness is absolute. I step deeper into the trailer's tunnel of darkness, the ramp sealing behind me with a pneumatic hiss that echoes like a heartbeat. My flashlight's beam scrapes the walls, metal panels scarred by time, rivets slick with condensation. The air tastes of diesel and dust, heavy with the promise of something kept too long. I press the notebook to my chest, fingertips tracing the bulge of its pages, my confessions, his evidence, every sin inked in its margins. The Polaroid burns through my coat, its edges damp but steadfast, a frozen moment I can't undo. My boots clack against the riveted floor as I follow the stranger, cap brim low, shoulders broad in the uniform, past rows of stacked crates. Each crate bears a label, case numbers, dates, locations. I read one aloud, voice trembling. I-80 Blizzard, Meyer, January 17th, 1992. Beneath, another, I-94 Eau Claire, Craft, February 2nd, 1992. My pulse flares. At the end of the line, a crate marked in fresh red paint. A 1A beachfront motel, Rivers, July 6, 2025. He pauses and pushes aside a cloth curtain draped between stacks. Beyond lies a broad chamber, lit by a single incandescent bulb swinging overhead. The light pools on a raised platform. A steel examination table, straps still affixed to its corners, surface streaked with rust. Under the lamp, my suitcase sits open. I step forward, dread coiling in my gut. Inside the suitcase lie artifacts of my career: the service revolver missing its bullets, weathered notebooks recording each code I ran that night 10 years ago, a rookie report stamped "withheld," and the battered cap with "never trusted the uniform." Layered beneath is a faded badge, my badge, cracked along the edge where it pinned my heart to duty. I kneel to lift the badge, feel its cold weight, and for a moment I'm back in dispatch, watching partners die on my watch, listening to static where shouts once echoed, deaf to their screams. The stranger stands silent, arms folded, watching me unearth each relic. I pull out the revolver, click the cylinder, empty. I hold it by the barrel, depressed slam of my palm thudding against wood. I place it back, then lift the notebooks one by one, reading page after page of my own handwriting, lines I never wrote. Confessions of betrayal, of cover-ups, of crimes of omission chalked, up as protocol. Each entry ends with the same phrase: "You will join them." My breath hitches. I rise, heart pounding in my ears louder than the trailer's wheels humming outside. I turn to the stranger. His face remains hidden beneath the brim. He nods once, imperceptibly, as if to say, "Keep going." I wipe sweat and rain from my brow, pull the Polaroid free, and place it atop the badge. The cadet stands in front of me, silent witness to my collapse. Behind him, my reflection, but I'm not standing here. I'm back in that Everglades cruiser. Frigid air hissed into the cabin, the trunk flare of boots in my light, static radio sending off my final words. I gather courage and step onto the platform, the steel cold through my shoes. I lay the Polaroid against the table's lip, badge and notebook beside it. The stranger raises a hand to stop me from touching the rusted straps. He steps back, giving me the space to end this confession. I look down at the arrangement, the evidence of my guilt spread before me like a fallen portfolio, feel the weight of every life I failed. My voice is thick as I begin. I remember her face. I lift the photograph to my lips, voice cracking. She was new, naive, blood pumping through her too fast. I left her behind for a case that mattered more. I didn't call it in, I assumed she walked away, but she didn't, and I didn't look back. I close my eyes, breath ragged. When I open them, the stranger steps forward, placing a cold hand on my shoulder. I flinch, expecting pain, but the touch is steady, grounding. He tilts the brim of his cap upward, just enough for a sliver of face to appear in the lamp's glow. I freeze. Those eyes first caught in a rearview mirror, glassy with accusation. He is Cadet Phillips, grown into a man I never knew, wearing my partner's uniform, carrying my sins. His face is a mirror of me, grief and resolve etched into lines I recognize as my own future. He speaks, voice low but clear over the hum of the trailer. Your confession isn't for me. It's for the world you abandoned, for every call you ignored, for every life left in your wake. You record your guilt into this night, and I record you. When this trailer opens at dawn, they'll find the evidence. They'll hear your voice and know your secrets. He nods to the tape recorder slung over his shoulder. I look past him at the bank of monitors, now frozen on the chamber's image, me boxed in by steel. Tension crackles through the air, thicker than the rain outside. I swallow once, dry as bone, and step back from the platform. My reflection in the dark glass of the monitors wavers. A man stripped of his badge, a detective-turned-exhibit. I slip from the stage, hands at my sides, heart pounding like a final alarm. The stranger moves aside. I want to speak, to plead, but no words come. Instead, I take one last glance at the table. The Polaroid, the badge, the notebook, the revolt of my sins displayed under a single bulb. The trailer's wheels slow. Outside, water sluices along the rain gutters. The stranger approaches the door control panel, a simple flip of a switch, and the red exit lights fade. He lays a palm on the door release. Behind me, the monitors flicker. One by one, they go dark until only the live feed remains, aimed at the closed trailer door. I step forward into the hush, flashlight shaking in my grip. The stranger's silhouette looms behind me, a silent guardian or jailer. He nods once, then signals me ahead. I hesitate at the open door, heart lodged in my throat. Beyond lies the dawn, the world waiting to judge me, waiting for the red light to flash on their screens, for the tape to spin into their ears. I turn my head, catch the stranger's cap brim in the blue glow of the sky. His face is gone, just an empty brim, a badge glinting in the gloom. I feel his presence in the metal under my fingers, in the damp floor beneath my boots. I take a breath that tastes of salt and tar, clutch the notebook like a lifeline, and step through the threshold. The trailer doors begin to close behind me, engines rumbling back to life. The stranger's voice reverberates in the metal corridor. Finish it, Rivers. I walk into the dawn, suitcase in hand, heart unmoored but determined. The trailer door slams shut with a final echo that reverberates in my chest. The diesel hum fades into the distance. I'm alone again on the highway, sweat cooling on my skin, suitcase heavy with truth. The world is waking. Dispatch will call, cameras will flash, histories will rewrite themselves. But before I speak to anyone, I pause under the pale morning sky, open the notebook, and whisper into its empty pages, into the hush where rain still falls. What if the confession never ends? I step out of the trailer and into the pale wash of dawn that glows like sweat on wet pavement. The semi-truck recedes behind me, its engine's heartbeat fading into the distance. In my hand, the notebook trembles, the pages swollen with rain and ink. Each word a confession that no plea can erase. I check the Polaroid once more. The cadet's eyes still bore into me, accusing, unblinking. I tuck the photograph into the notebook and zip it closed, sealing the evidence of my sins inside the binding. Ahead, the abandoned gas station's pumps stand like gravestones in the growing light. I cross the lot with slow, measured steps. Water from last night's storm hushes underfoot as I approach the cracked office door. I don't enter. The trail ends here. I raise my hand to my chest, press fingertips against the badge I once wore with pride. It's bent where I dropped it on that steel table, rubbed raw by guilt. I lift it to the morning sky. The metal glints once, then fades, swallowed by the gray light. I've walked this road since midnight, from one crime scene to the next, carrying shards of truth like sacrificial offerings. The swamp, the motel, the trailer, they were all theaters of my undoing, each staged to force me to watch my own collapse. I was the hunter, tracking a killer who hid in plain sight, but every step revealed that the real monster was me, the detective who chose cases over comrades, ambition over humanity. I look down the highway, no cruisers, no flashing lights, only the endless ribbon of asphalt winding into the sunrise. Somewhere ahead, dispatch will notice my radio silent. They'll send units to the motel, to this gas station, to the coordinates where I vanished. When they find this notebook and the Polaroid, they'll hear my voice leaking from the tape recorder, raw, ragged, unguarded. They'll learn the truth, that I was both protector and predator, that I abandoned more lives than the killer ever claimed. A lone car appears on the horizon, headlights wavering like a pierside beacon. I wait. It slows as it nears, pulls over, and the window lowers with a mechanical whir. A uniformed officer, young, fresh-faced, asks if I need help. His voice is polite, oblivious. I nod, offer him the badge and notebook. He hesitates, eyes widening as he reads the front. Jack Rivers, Confessions. Then he looks up at me, confusion and pity in his gaze. Before he can say a word, I shake my head and take back the badge. "Not yet," I whisper. I gesture down the road. "Keep going." He watches me turn, then nods slowly, puts the badge and notebook on the seat and drives off toward the rising sun. I stand alone in the damp shoulder grass, rainwater and tears mingling on my cheeks. I press a hand to my throat where the tape recorder mic still rests. Silent, but waiting. In my pocket, my phone buzzes. A text from dispatch, help is underway. I slide the phone back, knowing I won't be there to receive them. My duty has ended and begun again in the same breath. I take a step onto the asphalt, suitcase in hand, raincoat whipping in the dawn breeze. Every foot forward carries the weight of every life I saved and every one I failed to save. The road stretches before me, uncertain and unending. I pause, draw a final breath of the humid air, and whisper into the morning. What happens when the detective becomes the case? I keep walking, the suitcase's weight a constant reminder against my ribs, proof of the journey I've endured, the revelations I can't unhear. The road ahead gleams with the dawn's first light, slick with runoff from last night's storm. My boots press into the yellow line, that thin strip of paint guiding me through the haze, and every footfall echoes the confessions I've carried, the cadet's Polaroid stashed in my coat, the badge folded in the suitcase, the notebook crammed with my own sins. The horizon burns with a pale fire, a patient witness to my collapse and the world it will expose. I pull the collar of my raincoat tighter. Gone is the practicality of a detective's uniform, replaced by the heavy fabric that now shields me from judgment, but also from salvation. The wind whips scraps of paper from the battered motel sign behind me, fluttering like wounded birds, and I watch them dance before dissolving in the distance. Each scrap might carry my name, a date, a smear of ink from pages I never meant to publish. The world will find them. I pass a low-rise apartment complex whose windows catch the dawn, revealing families stirring to life. Laughter, arguments, the mundane symphony of morning routines. I wonder if they'll hear my name on the radio, see my face on the evening news. Will they understand that I, Detective Jack Rivers, was once their protector before I became the terror I hunted? Or will they simply another headline? Detective found dead in trunk. Suspicious circumstances? I glance at the Polaroid in my pocket. The cadet's face still stares back, eyes dark as oil. I slide a finger across its surface, feeling the slight give of emulsion, as though he's breathing behind the plastic. Somewhere in that frozen moment, he and I are bound by an unbreakable chain. I footage his guilt, he framed my downfall. I fold the photo and place it against my heart, where a tingling warmth betrays the numbness around it. The highway rises on a gentle incline, trees on either side receding to reveal a guardrail. Beyond it, the Everglades sprawl cradle-like, shallow pools reflecting the morning sky. The swamp is silent now, its horrors tucked away like secrets in a coffin. I stop at the guardrail, lean my elbows on cold metal, and peer into the water. Reflected back are branches, clouds, and, if I look hard, a flicker of movement beneath the surface. A distorted face? Or merely ripples of memory, conjured by the twin obsessions of guilt and fear? I exhale, clouding the air. My reflection shimmers between the trees. A man unmade by his own profession, unmoored from every principle he once held sacred. I retrieve the notebook and flip it open where the final pages are smudged unreadable. The words blur, but I know they say, "I failed them. I failed you. Now you must bear the weight of our endings." I tuck the notebook into my inner pocket, where its spine presses into my heart. Ahead, a crossroad. A stop sign, half buried in overgrown grass, points one arrow toward a sleepy township where life is normal, and another toward a service road that veers back into the wild unknown. That service road is where the killer's trail began for me, and where it now forks away. I face it for a moment, tempted to follow, to unearth every crate, every monitor, every piece of evidence still buried in shadows. But I know the killer's final exhibition is complete. Me. He doesn't need me to return. He made me his final masterpiece. A car passes behind me, a lone sedan heading toward the township. The engine's hum fades as it rounds a bend. I step onto the road, suitcase in hand, and wait. The driver slows, window lowering to reveal a middle-aged woman with concern lined on her face. "Are you okay, officer?" she asks. I hesitate. I am no longer officer, nor am I entirely unmade. My voice croaks. "Just heading home." She nods, offers a nod of solidarity, then lifts her foot from the brake and drives off. I watch her taillights recede, then turn back to the crossroads. Home. The word tastes foreign. I carry no home, only the road and its confessions. I realize that's the only place I ever belonged once I lost everything inside those trunks, those motels, those tunnels beneath gas stations. The road is my witness and my judge. I step off the highway and onto the service road. Tall grasses close behind me, swallowing my footprints as if they never existed. The city's glow dims and the swamp rises to greet me again. In the distance, a patrol light flickers, perhaps responding to a call about missing officers, perhaps searching for me. I press forward despite the knives of fear in my gut. The suitcase's weight is a constant, steady pulse, my heartbeat, my penance. As the swamp shadows deepen, I speak aloud for the first time. I am Detective Jack Rivers. I was wrong. I am sorry. Here are my confessions. I pull the notebook free and hold it in both hands, its pile of secrets threatening to tumble onto the road. I open to the first page, where the ink still shines. January 17th, 1992. And I begin to read into the hungry air, knowing no one will hear beside the frogs and the water. My voice cracks with every sentence, but I push on, slow, deliberate, so that every crime of omission, every delayed call, every abandoned partner, every cadet forgotten in the trunk of my guilt, echoes off the swamp's stillness. Hours pass without interruption, and the sun climbs higher, burning away the haze but not my remorse. I finish the last entry, my hand shaking so violently the words smear and dissolve on the page. And now, the final truth. I brought them here. Every body found, every crime reported late. I led them all to this swamp of confessions. I'm here because I followed the map I drew myself. I close the notebook. The silence is absolute. I feel rather than see the patrol car pull up behind me, tires crunching on gravel. I don't turn. I already know its occupant and my fate. The door opens, and the officer's boots approach. I hear him clear his throat. "Detective Rivers, dispatch has your location. We're ready to take your statement." His voice is gentle, expectant. I nod slowly, folding the notebook one last time. I lift my head, letting the morning light burn into my eyes, and answer without turning. "I'll be there in a minute." I slip the notebook and Polaroid into the suitcase, latch it shut, and turn toward the patrol car. My watch reads 7:45 a.m., July 7th, 2025. The sun's glare off the windshield is blinding. I step forward, suitcase in hand, ready to board the car, ready to face questions, ready to face consequences. Around me, the swamp breathes. The road stretches back to the point where this nightmare began. Ahead lies the precinct, the reporters, the cameras, the world waiting to reconstruct my story. Pause at the patrol car's door and glance over my shoulder at the service road. The grasses sway, and in their rustle I hear a whisper. Half human, half wind. Keep running, Rivers. Or is that my own voice, echoing the killer's command? I can't tell. I take a breath, steel myself, and step into the car. The door shuts with a click that reverberates in my chest like a verdict. Behind me, the swamp remains, patient and unjudging. The road is empty again, waiting for the next confession. And though the world will record my statement, though the precinct will log every word, it's that whisper in the grass, the promise of unfinished business, that lingers in my mind. After I speak, who will speak for me?